squeeze lemon and honey in the morning as a drink. And then lunchtime she'll have 200 grams of chicken with beans and broccoli. And then at night she's having whatever we're having for dinner. Just during the day she's not, but because it's high protein, she's not peckish throughout the day. That's why she's putting it weight on. Get my pregnant baby at 2 in the morning and eating biscuits and coffee. But her friend, she's been on it for 6 weeks and has lost 11 or 12 kilos. So, yeah.
I've lost about 4 kilos in 3 months.
I wish.
And
I'd be happy with that.
And I'm over the moon. But I still eat. I've just cut my food back a little bit, and I go to the pool and just do a little bit of swimming. And that's I've sort of, because they reckon if you lose it too quick, you put it back on twice.
Or if you lose it too quick, it probably means there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, well, that's another story too.
That's all I did.
Last year, 20 kilos on skin. I went from 66 up to 86, which was a healthy weight. I was solid, but I'm feeling good. I've lost 20 kilos since the start of the year.
Well,
8 kilos.
You don't need to lose any more.
Yeah, you're like a rake.
I'm 78 kilos and I
That's all
was
right.
86. And,
I was 73 when I got married, and that's 34 years on Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was doing a great job. I got to what I'm paying now and I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm going to lose some weight. And, you know, I couldn't stop it coming off. I got down to 49 kilos.
Whoa, you must have been
That's
really,
Yeah, I was. I was down to a size 8.
oh, because you're not real short either. Like,
that's skinny.
I was. Yeah, and then I found out I was sick, you know.
Yeah.
oh shit, that's not good.
Yeah. And when they fixed it all up, I just put it all back on again. Of course, now
That's
I'm
the
on
heaviest I've ever weighed.
wrong side of 50. It's really hard to lose it.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it?
Yeah. No, the best thing I ever did was change up my diet. Almost 40 kilos I've lost
Oh, good.
in the last.
Well done.
How much?
40 kilos.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, you said that the other day.
That's
That's bloody fantastic.
before and after. I put one together the other day and I was like, shit.
It's scary, isn't it?
Good on
Yeah.
you.
And I
I say
think-
good on you.
It would have been probably I don't know, 30th wedding anniversary. Maybe I got back into my wedding dress and I thought the whole world was fantastic.
When we went overseas back in 2012, I put on 10 kilos in 3 weeks. Man, that was big.
That was
Good
all
on
the,
you. Look at that.
all the food.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Good shit.
That is
good.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Got a lot. Good for you.
Go for it, girl.
Yeah. So.
You going quick more or?
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Like I started off at 155 kilos, and I'm down to what was I when I weighed myself this morning? 116. I'm sitting at now.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, you know, because I tried every fad diet known to man, every shake,
Yeah,
all it is just a change of diet and looking at food differently. That's all.
yeah,
it
don't
comes
eat as
down
much
to.
in sitting.
Yeah. I just smashed
Actually, first.
salad and tuna.
Oh,
Tuna's
yeah.
my best friend. Love that
Yeah, I love
shit.
tuna.
Yes.
Yeah, it's easy too, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like tuna too.
Oh, yeah. But anywho, all right.
Okay, so now Shikani, you weren't here last week. Did you get a chance to have a look at?
I've had a little. I've read
A little
over
bit?
your emails, and I got
Was it you?
10 minminutes into watching the video, and then Kiana decided to do all that in the lounge.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's been lovely.
Yeah.
But I will.
Well, have a look at it and
Yeah.
get on the blower if you've got any questions, because next week's when we're meant to present our little 5-minute
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
to
really good there.
pick something you know really well.
First time.
And actually, the bit that you've got is that we missed the first half last week on the video. I don't know why it didn't work. I looked up at break time and there was nothing there. And when
That's right.
when I closed it, it didn't do its normal, oh, you've got to convert it now. I thought, oh, well, that really worked, didn't it? But we've got the second half where we talked about the actual presentation. The first part was on training needs analysis, which you can read in your book.
Yeah.
But yeah, as HSR people, not HSR, so I've got to stop saying that. as safety people, keeping track of everyone's safety training is something we need to do.
Okay, why are we not doing it as HSRs and as safety people? Did I miss that last week?
HSRs are you people out in a workplace who the work groups have elected,
And we're the safety.
and you're the safety manager / coordinator.
Righto, okay.
You're paid to make sure safety works in the workplace. They're just helping you.
Beautiful, righto.
That's the main difference. So tonight we're really going to look at what happens when consultation doesn't work. I can imagine you doing that too.
Oh, no, look, I'll tell you something for nothing.
Tell them straight.
This one time, there was this one girl, and I tried everything in my power, and she just would not listen, and I ended up losing my shit in the car park. I said, you know what? I said, you are the most thick-headed wit I've ever met in my life. I said, it's not hard. Your job's not hard. She was a cleaner.
Oh,
she wasn't even a nurse.
Yeah.
She wasn't even my responsibility.
Well,
But McDonald's like, you need to deal with it because she'll listen to you.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what to say to that? She's not my. We don't say it's not my job. I hate it when people say it's not my job.
Yeah.
You've got to say back to you.
Someone else's department.
You don't. That hey,
But the
it's
problem was,
really her boss that needs to be talking to her.
technically, overnight, she was my responsibility
Okay.
because I was her supervisor.
Oh, okay. Makes it tough.
So I ended up giving her 2 written warnings, and I said to my boss, I said, and they were legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just because, you know,
Because
I
she
felt
was-
like it.
Yeah, because she was the dumbest person you'd ever met.
Oh, literally. Like, I've met some pretty stupid people in my time. And I tell you what, she's top of the list.
And actually that, and this isn't to say anything against what you've just been saying, but sometimes that's a barrier to communication too, because we approach the person with a preconceived what's going to happen, because we do know them. So sometimes, yeah, it sounds like you really did try.
I did. I tried for weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like I was that person who was, like, we'll pull her aside. Listen, I'm going to have to, like, this is due for a written warning. And then she'd cry. And because she was a single mum, it pulled at me because I'm a sole parent. And I'm like, I don't want you to lose your job because I get that. It was just a shit show. And anyway, I ended up saying to me, Don, I said, listen, I said, you need to deal with it because I can't no more.
Right.
I've had enough. I'm like, I've done my piece. I've done all I can do. It's on you.
Oh, but that's what you needed to do. It really is.
Yep.
Okay, first part of the night though is actually OHS issue resolution. So what do we do when we've got a problem and it might be a hazard that isn't getting dealt with? It could be something that your HSRs have raised with you, that you're banging your head up against the brick wall. We've got to figure out what we're going to do about it. Have you got this one with you?
Yep.
If you haven't, I'll go and print some.
Employee representation.
Employee representation.
Yeah.
Yep.
I gave that first night. I'll just go and grab a copy. We only need one page. You just got a copy there.
Yes. Well, I hope so. Because I highlighted all through it.
I have, but I think I'll start again. Even the other one, there's a few questions I think I read, I just misinterpreted. Anyway,
I know. I feel
I said to the missus, I'm not going to go through this.
No, my daughter-
They cannot fail that.
my daughter wanted to kill me the other night.
Yeah.
Even tonight, when I met, because I got here about 5:30, lights was still out. I'm thinking, geez, that we can. So I messaged my daughter. She had a few problems at work today. So I messaged her how she'd come. She goes, "Are you there yet?" I said, "Yeah, I might be coming."
For some reason, it decided to go on a big piece of paper.
She goes,
oh, right.
said, "I was
Good
over
times.
here." And I wrote, and I put a big smiley thing. And then I wrote back, then the lights got to know, the lights back with a tear. And she goes, "Dad's at me like that."
Oh.
Yeah.
No, you know what? My mum pulls on me. So I've got 2 mums. I've got my biological mother and then my adopted mum. Anyway, so my biological mother, She rings me today and she goes, Shikani, I have a position for you. And I'm like, oh yeah. She's like, do you want to do your diploma of nursing? I'm like, you're a bit short-sticked or something. Like, already been there, done that. And she's like, oh, well, what about your bachelor? I said, listen, I'm already in the course. I said, I ain't going back to nursing. No.
Oh, that's the one where you've got to work all those weeks. You just reminded yourself. Yeah.
Nah, never again. No, starting at 1500 and finishing at 7 a.m. No, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, because we had no staff. Like when I started, I was employed as just a team leader. That was it.
14 hours.
Every night. Well, every day. Every day. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. So what I just copied for Shikara is on page 58 of the employee representation booklet. Now, this booklet is the legal side of consultation requirements.
The flow chart.
Yeah, it's a flow chart that we're going to look at because it's a legal requirement on employers that we actually have an OHS, specifically OHS, issue resolution process of some description. Now, the information for that is in the regulation. So much as if you've got one, oh, you've all got one, great. Perhaps just have a look in the regulations, go to the table of provisions in the front and see what you can find out about issue resolution. Won't take you a minute because it's still start.
Issue part 2.2.
Issue, yeah,
2.2.
Or very big.
No, it's not very big.
Application of
What'd you say?
parties to the resolution of issues.
Yeah.
Procedure for reporting issues.
And really, what that's telling the employer.
Oh, wow, it's not big at all.
No, it's not. And that's why we've also got this.
Procedure for result.
Because it doesn't really tell you a lot. Let's have a look what it says. It's also in the OHS Act when you start to look at PINs and these works, they're part of this process. So it tells you who's got to be involved in it. So you'll see at the start, part 2.2 issue resolution procedures. So because in section 73 of the Act, that's the part of the OHS Act, so the Green Book, that deals with cease work. You cease work when there's an immediate threat. But we also have to have, well, a procedure of some description. What are we going to do after that? So we've come up with this. And basically, these couple of pages are just telling the employer that they have to have a procedure. And when you read Regulation 25, it talks about having meetings and what's acceptable and what's not. So because that's a bit vague or a lot vague?
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's why WorkSafe put together this, okay, because the section 73 and 74 are actually in part 7 of the OHS Act, and this is a guide to everything that's in part 7 of the OHS Act. So we just went to the procedure, but there's also a heap of words around issue resolution in this book, and it starts on page 47. Yeah, you have got this book. I wonder if it's in this. No, we won't be using it for that one.
Page 47.
47, chapter 9. And it tells us all the whys and wherefores as to why we have to have an issue resolution procedure. And it goes on to tell us what that procedure might look like and the sort of things that are in. So, actually, it's only...
So for this particular unit, that'd be really good to read back to front.
Or have as a reference anyway.
Okay.
That's why I gave it to you.
Beautiful.
So that gives us, if you like, a standard that we can look at. You don't have to use what's in here, and lots of places don't.
Yep.
we're going to have a bit of a compare with some things. That's why I wanted you to have the flow chart. So we're going
Yep,
to
yep.
compare some flow charts. And that's why I've got the second dot point there. From a legal perspective, it can be, you can use the information that's in this book, or you can have your own. So your employer's going to be looking to you for advice on this, and you might just say, well, let's go with the WorkSafe one for now, and then we'll develop one that actually meets our needs better.
Yep.
Because it is a very general type thing. What the other thing you can do is to use the internet. What did I say the other day to someone? You never create what you can steal with pride.
You know, I look up like these questions that we've got in these assignments. I mean,
Yeah.
You look at your acts and your reps and that, and then I go to the internet on Google stuff, and it's pretty much what's in here. It says it on there, like.
Yeah. Sometimes the problem with the internet is you'll just get a rehash of the legal stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's still in legal jargon. But yeah, if you can actually talk to each other, talk to us, we'll try and put it back into.
That reminds me, I need to accept the group chat. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I did that with the duty holder. And it just came up with this section of the duty holder.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same words and everything.
Yeah. What a bother.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really need to get your head around what each one of those means. Yes. And I know if I was asking questions for that, you know, I wouldn't just be asking for what the duty holder has to do. I'd be asking for examples of how they're doing that.
Because on the internet too, it's like you look like we're doing I'm looking up consultation stuff, and it's just comes up over and over with all the same sort of stuff. And it sort of drums it into your head.
Yeah. And it is good to read it from more than one source.
Yeah.
So you've got your booklet, you've got what we talk about in class, you've got your PowerPoints. Go to the internet, and you'll probably find.
Yeah, it's a WorkSafe.
Yeah, you got WorkSafe. Yeah. And the booklets have all come from WorkSafe. Yeah. So that's how I'm really confident and comfortable that you've got the right information. Some cups up the back there. Yeah. The other thing that I found when I was looking at this, I Google things too, and I'd forgotten a bit about this website. ohsrep.org.au is the website of the Trades Hall Council.
Chess?
Yeah, it's on the PowerPoint anyway, if you can read. Can you read it? So.
Oh, down there. Okay.
On the bottom there.
Yep. www. Yep.
That's the actual copy. Oh, that was to get to issue resolution.
Yep.
So there's actually a page in there on issue resolution, which I've got a copy. I've printed it off for you. But it does give you another perspective on all things OH&S. We're talking about one of the most militant groups of workers in the country when we go to the Victorian Trades Hall Council. But it does give us still legal, it's still all the information, but it's just a slightly different bent.
You know, just say something. Sometimes you're looking up, you know, Canada's got a lot of stuff the same as
British Columbia.
Yeah, that we've got.
Country.
Yeah.
Because I read, like sometimes just comes up and you think, let's just see what they say.
Yeah.
You think, geez, that's what we spoke about. And
Yeah.
then you read our stuff.
Theirs is really similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not completely different. Yeah.
And everywhere's got a different philosophy, and that's hence the change. Yeah. Okay. So, but do make sure that you use the internet to look up stuff for these. And that also shows one of the outcomes that we have to tick off, and that's that you can find your own information. Okay, let's go through this flow chart now. Those of you who did 5-day training with me, this won't be anything new, because we would have done it in that. Before I start that, I might just give you flowcharts that I found to compare. Got a few. Oh yeah, I put this one in because it probably has some things that we can find that doesn't actually meet the requirements, and that's why I've scratched out the name.
Oh, geez, that's even with my glasses.
Sorry about that, but that's how it printed up. After we've gone through the WorkSafe one, I want you to have a look at each of these and just make a bit of a judgment as to whether you think they're meeting the requirements. This one's a school one. So this is what the government's giving to all the schools for an issue resolution procedure. That might be enough for now, actually. Got a couple more here, I'll just give you at the end. Just as examples of what you might set up if the boss needs something. So, just going through Appendix B in the books, let's have a look at it and see where the actual issue kicks in. So it's got up the top there, issue arises. This is on the photocopy that I've quickly out of the book. What do you got there, your assessment time? But yeah, we'll probably have time for some Q&A at the end tonight. We've only got 9 slides.
The answer.
So the issue arising isn't, at that point we're not in dispute, and that's why I've got up there on the slide, the hazard or risk has been reported, so that could be through your normal reporting channels that you've already got set up at work. So we get all the people together that we need together to fix it. That's pretty standard, isn't it? We all do that in our workplaces anyway. It's if we can't get to some sort of agreement, either A, that we've got a problem, sometimes that's a disagreement. The boss doesn't agree with the workers that it's actually a problem. Can't ignore the head. She's found that one. Or it could be that the problem is, well, we don't know what to do about it, or we can't agree what to do about it. So then we move into the issue resolution process. But I want you to think, and this one doesn't do it particularly well, I don't think, because it doesn't ask me until way down past halfway whether there's an immediate threat or not. So as safety people, you need to school your brain. Say, okay, we've had a hazard/risk reported. What are the possible outcomes? And if there's, and again, WorkSafe and the Act doesn't tell us what immediate threat is. Actually,
You think the immediate threat would be a fire?
yeah, well, it's sort of just the way they've laid it out, because they've actually got the reporting process at the top.
Yes, and the issue arises.
Yeah.
Issue arises.
Where really the top part of that's your reporting process.
Yeah.
I just had a
You
thought
think,
occur.
you know, to go issue arises, is there an immediate threat? Okay? And
That
then,
would be good.
And then is
And
there an agreed procedure?
Yep.
Because the immediate threat
No,
could
it's
be a
not in
life
there
and death
either.
situation.
It
Okay?
could be.
You wouldn't want to go through all this bullshit if it's a life and death situation.
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm saying
So
too.
there's lots of death you shut it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I'm bringing it up. You just shut it down. It
Mm.
could be that when you come to doing your own, you might say that issue arises. They've got all the stuff in there about an agreed procedure. You won't need that bit because you're going to go straight to your procedure, and it could be that the next thing that your procedure says. So this would be the next spot in your flowchart.
Mm.
What are the consequences? Is there an immediate threat? And then you'd have a yes, and you'd say shut down.
Yeah.
If you say no, then you go to the next
Then you
bit
go through your Sarah H's.
and get the employees together and come up with a way to fix it. Okay, so that takes care of that bit. It's only when we get down to the first resolution, if it's a no, that we actually go into an issue resolution, an issue resolution process, where we have to come up with a way to get both parties to work together. And really, that's, if I had the one thing that I needed to say about safety in workplaces, it would be, my dream is to get everybody working together to make workplaces safe. That there is no them and us. It's just, what are we going to do to fix this? I know it's a pipe dream. Yeah, but it's something to aim for. So there's two things that our flow chart is telling us here. Okay, so we haven't got agreement. So now we're asking, is there an immediate threat? If it's a yes, then we stop work. Now your HSRs can actually stop work in this situation, but really in most workplaces, so can any worker. Okay, and it would be preferable that that cease work is supported by management, so by the line supervisor. So in your workplaces, can you think of anything that might happen where you might actually stop work?
Yeah, when I was at the Coppers Farm last year,
Mm-hmm.
there's ways that were rusted out.
Okay.
Yeah. Just over 30 years, I just all deteriorated.
Where was that at?
Mount Isa.
Oh, okay.
Copper smelter.
Yep.
And yeah, so they ended up stopping work.
Yep. Get it fixed?
They got it fixed eventually, but they ended up making us walk around a different way.
Okay, so there was an
barricaded off
alternative.
that.
Yep.
So we stopped work at the time, came down, all came together and said, okay, we'll go around this, and then end up getting
And that's
fixed
fine.
next week.
As a short-term thing, the workers probably hated it.
Yeah. But then another time, I was out on site in Western Australia, a bloke died.
Yeah.
Whole site shut down. 3
Yeah,
days.
We had and that's part of the argument that we've got to be able to put into words for our bosses when we're talking about things that need to be fixed. Well, hey boss, what's going to happen if somebody's seriously hurt? Oh, you might just lose a few days' production. I understand that. Just locally though, and this is going back quite a few years, there's a guy working at one of the feed places, and their walkways were just that open mesh, and it went over the top of all this other stuff that moved grain around. Anyway, he had to go and adjust or open a gate valve or something to let empty silo out. And he walked over on this proper walkway, but as he got to one particular spot, it collapsed underneath him.
Yeah, well, that's what this one.
And unfortunately, there was a spin and auger underneath it, and it took his leg off just below the knee. But I mean, he coped quite well with it. The point was, it shouldn't have happened. And he wasn't an overly big bloke. And you know what he said one day, though, we talked to him down the street, how you going, mate? He said, you know what? My golf handicap's improved out of sight since I hurt my leg. Because that was what he was doing as therapy to keep himself mobile. And so it wasn't great, but he had the right attitude.
But that could have been prevented.
It could have been. That's right. That should have showed up just in an inspection. Yeah.
But even another employee that's walked over and noticed, oh, that's a bit shitty.
Could have been.
Welds are broken or rusted out. It's a report that.
Yeah, and that's why we would have talked heaps probably about reporting with Trevor and how it's part of every employee's responsibility. Actually.
Except in nursing, they don't like to report nothing.
Yeah, and that's a cultural thing, isn't it? And why don't they like to report it?
Because everyone has this belief, well, a lot of nurses have this belief that monkey see, monkey do, and if it's not my problem, I'm not going to report it. Because a lot of them think they're going to get in trouble, like with needle stick injuries.
Okay.
You know, like, just report it. You've got to save your own ass, you know. No, just hazardous stuff, and they all...
Yeah, what I hear, and I have a fair few nurses come through different trainings that I do, is that it's, they want to just do their job and go home at the end of the shift, they're buggered. But it's because the government's put some fairly complex ways to report in place. I actually went to a meeting with the safety group today, and it was interesting to notice that with regard to violence and aggression, the health system's actually letting them do a paper report, which they can fill in really quickly and give to someone, even if it's the safety area. You guys might end up with all these bits of paper that you then have to input into the system. But at least you know about it. And so I thought that was good. Can we do it for everything else now? And really, it was half a sheet of paper that you had to fill in to say what happened where and to who.
Yeah, see, ours was where I was, ours was all electronic.
Yeah, and that's
because it kept going missing. Well, missing. In other words, they never gave it to anyone to report to begin with.
right.
It was,
Yeah, but they've got the government's got a fairly cumbersome.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they do. It's just nobody wants to use it. That's the issue.
Yeah. And I think that, this is an outsider looking in, so don't quote me. But it's a system that's been designed to do a hell of a lot. And safety's just one bit of it. But I'll tell you what, they get some really good information out the other end if they could get the stuff in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, if there's an immediate threat, we stop.
Yeah, you get into them tonight first. They all give me shit because I'm always the first one into them. I take all the good ones.
Oh, we've got a new packet tonight. So you can see there again, it's got, okay, what happens after we put the stop work in place. If management agree, then you resolve the issue, and whatever you decide gets recorded in your paperwork. It talks there about reporting to the safety committee, that's HSC. That's up to you guys how you set that up, but it's important that the information's captured somewhere. If there's still a dispute, i.e. management wants you to go back to work without doing anything, that's when you call WorkSafe. Okay? So that's if there's an immediate threat. But if when you have to be upfront with this, you don't stop if you don't have to. If there's no immediate threat, if it's just something that's really been in the system for a long time, there is a safety risk and there is actually a breach of the OHS Act. We talked about these a couple of weeks ago. That's when the HSRs would consider writing a PIN. Okay, safety managers can't write PINs, only HSRs can. But you need to know, and you do know now, what to do if you get a PIN. But work doesn't stop this time. So it's not we'll have a PIN, and if the PIN doesn't work, we'll go to a cease work. It's not like that. If you've got the possibility of a serious life-changing injury, that's how I encourage you to think about it, that the consequences are life-changing. I'm not going to be better in a couple of weeks. I'm really, going to lose it. And what does it mean if someone gets hurt at work and they're off work for months? We're not even going to them fatality rate at the moment. Just, they have something happen where they're off work for months. What do they lose?
Income.
Livelihood.
Yeah, income. Some, 5%.
My mum, she's on work cover at the moment, going on 3.5 years, and you know what? She's lost her entire identity.
Has she?
Her dignity.
Good point. That's where
Everything.
that's where I was heading.
Everything.
It's not just money. You do lose some money, and with that sort of child on work cover. Yeah.
Family, fix your family.
Yeah, you can be. You're a different person. The person's different. They're not who they were before whatever happened. So yeah, we do see a lot of family breakdown. But it's also missing out on things like superannuation and promotion and all that sort of stuff. You just can't recover if you're out of work for a long time.
Mental, it's
That's right. So really, we don't want the injury to happen. So that's why we're quite clear. If you can't resolve it internally, involve WorkSafe. A lot of companies don't like that idea at all. But they're usually the ones that probably need a That's my experience anyway. Again, if you have your HSR issues in, if there's a resolution, great. We've now got our problem fixed. And we know that sometimes writing it all down and telling the employer that you're actually in breach of this part of the OHS Act, that scares them perhaps more than a cease work does. And you might get the problem fixed. Again, if there's any dispute with the PIN, you call WorkSafe. So that's the standard one. That's the one you use if there isn't one in your workplace already. Okay. It's pretty simple. What I want to do now, though, those other ones that I gave you, just compare them to the one that WorkSafe recommended and just see what changes they've made and if you think that they tick enough boxes. Oh, it's still happening up there on the little thingy. Oh, last week, we didn't notice that the video thing's gone off on the screen. That's why you only got the second half. But I don't know until I stop it whether it's all going to work or not. Which is a bit sad for these other ladies. They've actually sent me a message.
You know, I completely forgot to message you. I rang Trev and I let him know, but I completely forgot to ring you last Wednesday.
Oh, you didn't tell me.
I did. I rang him and I said, listen, I said, I'm probably not going to be in all week because Kiana is sick as...
Right.
I've never had to clean up so much vomit throughout my house in my life.
This one here.
Actually, one of the girls in the office, her two kids had it.
It's going around the schools at the moment. It's not quite gastro, but it's from the same family, I feel. Because with gastro, it's only 24 to 48
That's
hours,
right.
whereas this one, like, my daughter had it for almost 5 days.
That's a long time to be trying to keep it hydrated.
Oh, yeah, it was good fun.
Straight away. I'll look at it.
Anyway, have a look at those.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Not working with the
You got the couple of dead ones.
Yeah. Bit vague.
That's because they've got another layer. So they've got the people in the school, and then corporate, which for, I think for most of this area is vanilla. They've got a safety person sitting over there, which will be the OHS advisory service.
I almost like this one better.
Yeah, I was going to say this one is not bad.
This one's the best one.
Which one are you looking at?
OHS issue resolution
With
procedure.
the little triangles. I think that's the best one so far. Because the other one's right. Is there a health and safety representative? No. Employees nominate. You're not going to have time to nominate a HSR, put them through the training.
It's not a HSR. That's not what it says. It just says to nominate a person.
Is there a health and safety? Is there a HSR?
Yeah, is there? It asks you if there is
And
one.
if there's not, the answer
If
no.
there's
Employees nominate representatives
Yeah,
to discuss the issue with.
that's just when you read all the words
Yeah.
attached with that.
It means
That's
someone
just
else.
right now, here and now. Pick someone
I'll
who I
pick
Who's
you.
can
I'm
going
gonna
to
pick
and you're
you.
going to
Yeah.
represent us to go talk and
Yeah,
do stuff.
just for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Which,
Yeah, so they're not going to necessarily end up being a full-on HSR.
no, I realise, yeah, okay. Yeah.
They don't need to train more. Is that the one there was something missing on there?
I like that.
Where are my glasses? I bet they're in the car. Oh, yeah, this one's not bad actually. What is
Which one's
that?
that one?
The one you would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reckon that's the best one out of the lot.
I was just about to do that.
Which one? Oh,
The cleaners are getting a bit carried away, aren't they? That's what happens when they work as a team. You get some noise as well.
That's how I knew that the people that worked under me were being productive when I actually heard noise. There was a few times I walked in on nurses' stations and they were,
Oh, really?
that was instant dismissal where I was, because the whole nursing home that I worked in was dementia specific, the whole lot. So, yeah, no, getting interesting.
I was in hospital there a while ago, and that was the best after 10 o'clock at night. The nurses used to put on music, and they used to dance and that, and I used to love it.
I was for 3 weeks in Alice Springs Hospital. I had this one, she was African woman. I was at like a house on fire. She looked after all us Indigenous fellas in there, because we had our own ward wing sort of thing. And yeah, she used to come in and she, what are you doing, Jenko? No, not a lot. Just hanging around. I'm just going to chill here with you for a little bit. Shut the curtain, pull up a chair, put her feet on my bed, sit there and talk shit, read a magazine.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's definitely
20 minutes later, she's gone again.
I had this one fella I looked after. We'll call him John for identity purposes. But I'll tell you what, I've never ever met another guy like him. He was very young when he did come to us. He was only 55. And what a laugh he was. Every night he waited up for me.
What did you say it was? Young 55, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Because that's what I am. Oh,
Young 55. Well, it is for somebody
oh, for somebody there.
to obtain dementia at that age. It's
Yeah.
yeah, but he
Yeah, you want to use that? Yeah. Let's use that. Oh, I've got yellow. Do you want to use that?
No, that's just. The missus got it. She goes, oh, it's only $1.50. I'm like, yeah, thanks. See what?
Yeah,
It's only
we'll use
$1.50.
it. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how good these ones are.
what is that?
Oh, well, look at that.
Highlighters.
I'm going to keep them.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, the marketing people gave them to me the other day because it's one of them in the group, in the HSR training. And I said, boss always goes cook because my highlighter bill's so high, so she got a few boxes of them for me.
Bloody hell, look at-
Beautiful.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'll throw this one out. No, keep that.
Whoa, jeez.
Yeah, they work good too, don't they?
I know, do they?
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
yeah,
Jeez.
that's awesome. Thanks, Josh.
It's all right.
Give it to the kids, they use it as a frisbee.
I like to keep that for nieces and nephews. That's a bloody remote.
So we've got one that's pretty good.
Yeah, I reckon.
What about the education department one?
The tape one.
Have you got it?
Oh, yeah, that one.
What's that one?
That's the go tape one. I can read it.
Oh, you
under
can
the
read it,
writing. Yeah.
What? Actually, it's the old go tape one.
Oh, the old, oh, the other day. The old tape.
All right, then. It's the old one.
Because that's a picture, I couldn't take it out.
Yeah, no, I didn't mind that one, but I just it just seems to be. a
That
bit,
one's actually the new go tape one.
oh,
The
okay.
one that you got.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Well, that one's a lot better than this one. This one seems to be a bit.
Yeah, and that's why I'm showing you some that are a bit different.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Lynette.
Hello.
Hello, it is.
Hang on, I'll move this shit over.
You're like 2 weeks in a row. I didn't realise that. Did you, Oscar?
I've been keeping an eye out for you when I drive past the buses, but all I ever see is this bloke with the big beard and the turban on. Oh, nah, that's not it.
Maybe she's in disguise.
That's it.
I see him so much, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
Oh, is that Lynette?
Two of them.
Oh, is there?
Three.
Oh, might be a different one. Yeah.
Now, that's a barrier to communication.
But from a
Something
distance,
like
if you
that.
don't know them.
Well, one's got a white turban and the other's got a yellow one. I've noticed that.
Oh, but they swap them around.
Oh, do
Blue,
they?
purple,
Oh,
orange.
I just thought maybe they're different.
Orange is high vis, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, stop it.
It's interesting coming in terms of the turban in the food industry.
In the
What,
food
do they
industry.
wear it in the? Really?
But they have to put it
At least they
in
wouldn't wear
top.
their hair. Oh, they still have to wear a hairnet over the top of the turban. But isn't that technically keeping the hair in?
No, yeah, the turbans are dirty.
Oh, yeah, they're filthy. I worked with a bloke. He's there in Alice Springs. He was a sick.
Seaman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
S-I-K-H. He had the beard and the turban. Took his turban off and his hair was down to about his ass.
Yeah, they don't cut their hair.
Jesus.
That's part of their religion.
Yeah.
It's part of their religion, they don't cut
Yeah. And he just wrapped it all back up and then put the turban back on.
it.
Turban
Hence
was
the
filthy
need for
as
the turban.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, man. So you need.
Okay, so we are currently.
She needs a highlighter.
looking-
Oh, yes, you need.
Yeah.
Another highlighter.
No, we
Nah.
get funny ones, yeah.
I'll have to see if I've got any more now.
Oh.
I've got some back in the office. If you don't get it, I'll get it.
He should have been late.
Thank you.
And we're just looking at the.
So in your.
Oh, hang on.
In here,
Hold up, we got given 3. I've only looked over 2.
so in here.
Slipping. You're
I
slipping.
know,
Yeah,
Jesus. Because I didn't get first dibs on the biscuits tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're too concentrating on the biscuits, you are. You're slipping. Mind on the jobs.
That's all right. No, I didn't know. Everyone? Yep, 3. For example. 2.
I like the way this one's laid out. But I think,
It looks more simple.
yeah, but
This one he's
I
got
think
more.
this one here's got more input than
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus, oh, it's that small, right? Isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I almost need specs for my specs.
Yes, when I looked it up, it was a picture that had been plopped in.
Oh,
The specs would be
Didn't do anything with it.
no, I can read that fine, but yeah.
I could too.
I find the most
What it
ridiculous
is
shit
to
photo.
be young.
No, do you know what it actually is? That sounds weird. Because I'm hearing impaired, my other senses are a little heightened.
Hey, I can read that if I work hard.
If I work hard.
And I put it out here somewhere.
No, I can't even do that anymore.
I can
Used
read
to
it
be-
out here.
I used to be able to.
Yeah, I
Hey,
can read
got
it out
the
here. I
specs
can read it out here.
I can see the top one, but not the
I
small
think.
stuff.
Not even working hard.
Yeah, I can read that out here. With arms length. And I can read it up close.
Sunglasses.
Yeah, but you're a young buck. Yeah, compared to me. I've got 20 years on you.
My sunglasses.
How old are you?
37.
What?
Yeah,
Multi-focus?
6,
Oh,
So I can read the tickets.
Oh, okay. Well, when I got my sunglasses, I just got my distance prescription in there. So I can't read with them.
Old man's got them prescription glasses that go to sunglasses.
Yeah, they don't work
Yeah.
well in the car.
my
Nah,
dad.
that's what he said too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
transition.
the transition lenses don't work well in the car. And when you drive into the sun to go to work and go home again,
Yeah.
you need proper sunlight.
No, my dad, he had those old school, thick ass, square glasses, and his sunglasses used to clip on the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah,
My
you
dad
just
had
flip
them
them
too.
down.
And
Yeah,
we'll
my dad
flip
had
down.
them.
He looked like such a seed or something.
And Dad would walk around with them sitting on his frame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what my old man did. Yeah.
Because otherwise he'd break them or lose them. Anyway, we've got 3 different ones there. The guys have decided that one of them's pretty good. The Department of Education one's actually missing, the one with the blue stripe on it. It's missing something, I think, in memory.
Seems to have everything covered.
Except for,
It's got nothing about the meeting threat.
yeah,
Yeah, the media threat. That's
Yeah.
something that was
Got
missing.
nothing.
You think being a government one, that would have that in there, wouldn't you?
and that's the whole thing. There's no
I
sort of,
suppose because it's no, yeah.
there's no sort of rules of what you have to have
I
in
mean,
it.
Because that WorkSafe one's only a template. But
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And then you put your own, or you want to
Yeah.
change it.
yeah,
And it's not uncommon for, even though it's a health and safety issue resolution procedure, it's not uncommon for a PIN not to be mentioned. It's the other thing. I'm just looking at this one here.
yeah, that doesn't happen.
This,
I think those three have all got pins in it.
Oh yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one hasn't. The reason I'm giving this one out specially is because it's come from another state, so don't take any notice of the regulation numbers, because they'll be different to ours. And it's a different sort of setup altogether. It does mention pins.
I should be moving stuff out of the way.
Oh.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. First place.
Comcare, I've read that too.
Yeah, Comcare is
On the
the
internet.
WHS. We have to
Yeah, I
say
saw
work
that on
health.
the internet as
Yeah,
well.
work health and
Yeah,
safety
yeah.
for federal government employees.
Okay.
So if you're in the army or anything like that, where you're actually employed by the government.
So this is government.
Yeah, this one is.
All
But I think, does it say it's Comcare somewhere?
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
no,
Yeah.
prepared by Comcare,
Yeah.
HSRs.
So Comcare, if you like, is the work safe for federal government employees.
All right.
And technically, doesn't matter where they are, they have to, legally, their piece of legislation is the WHS Act and regulations Comcare put out. So down at Pucker, they've got,
They have nothing about consult WorkSafe.
pardon?
They have nothing about consult WorkSafe.
Well, there you go.
They deal with their own, they're the government.
The HS and the very end too is the HSR can issue a PIN as consultation.
No, on the left-hand side, a party to the issue may request a Comcare inspector attend the workplace.
Right,
Who's that?
on the left hand side.
So
Oh, yeah.
with government, so with army and
Yeah.
navy and everything else, they have Comcare instead of
WorkSafe.
right.
Yeah.
So every state's got WorkSafe,
Every
but
state's got
the government's got their own, like the army. What about police?
police estate. They're employed by the state government, so
Okay,
they're
okay.
just-
So it's probably much the army,
the army, Centrelink,
Centrelink too.
Centrelink of federal.
Really?
Nice.
I was
Australian
able to
Federal
get
Police, obviously.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But yeah, the
What
army.
about people that actually work for the federal government?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few taxation people.
Oh,
They're federal public servants. So technically, and it is a technicality. This is a piece of legislation that they actually have to make sure they meet.
Okay.
And if you look up, when you look up legislation on the internet, you'll see all the different ones.
Hmm.
So New South Wales has got a Work Health Act, Queensland's got a
Yeah.
Work Health Act. The Northern Territory has two now apparently, which is interesting because all their stuff used to be covered by South Australia, all their pieces of legislation. Western Australia's in the throes of changing. Tassie's got a Work Health Act and Comcare's got a Work Health Act. And they're all similar but not the same.
I don't understand why we don't just all work off the one body.
Because OH&S is a state responsibility and the states won't give up their responsibilities to the federal government. They start doing that, they're in danger of becoming extinct, which is probably
That'd be good. Save money.
but we'd have to have more federal politicians anyway if they did that, so we'd still end up with the same number of ish of people. But yeah,
It just wouldn't be that and be.
yeah. So that's why, because all the other states, they've still put their legislation through their houses of parliament. Queensland's the only difference, they only have one house of parliament, they don't have a house of review. But they're all a little bit different, even though they started off being the same document. By the time the politicians get a hold of them and decide this needs to be amended and that needs to be amended, they end up a little bit. And because Victoria didn't go down that track, we've still got our good old Act of 2004, which was the newest one when they started to go national, and it's the one that all the work health acts are based on anyway. So it's still pretty good. What else have I got for you here? Before I move on to the actual procedures. Why did I print this one off? I should have written on it, shouldn't I? This is a New South Wales one. Just as another example for you, really. It's in pretty colours, so you better have it. It's just if you ever have to put one together for a workplace, you need some examples to work from.
Of course.
I used to got stuff written on it.
No, better have that one. That's my notes, probably. What notes did I write? Okay. Cease work. Oh, this is because it was a New South Wales document. It says there with the cease worker trained HSR issues a PIN. You don't have to have trained HSRs in Victoria for them to have their hours. The PCBU, we would say employer. I'm just going down the right-hand column here. How to consult on work health and safety code of practice. You could still use that as a reference. That's a document from the New South Wales work cover site. And because it's a non-act reference, actually it says there it's a Safe Work Australia reference, I must have found it. Safe Work Australia is another body that put up information. They don't actually have a jurisdiction like the WorkSafes do, but they do put together some really good reference material. And that how to consult on work health and safety is a code of practice that they've put up. Oh, and I've corrected the need for issue resolution. The Victorian regulation is 22 to 25. That was what we looked at earlier in the white book. And the inspector's thing is the OH&S Act of 2004 and it's part 9. And the employer has an issue resolution procedure at the end there. But that's what I'm saying, they're all really similar. It's just they've got some terminology different. That's why I didn't hand that one out straight away. But otherwise, the steps aren't too bad. That's another way to present it. It might be that works better for your organisation. And that's what we're doing now. Oh, that's where you get the Safe Work Code of Practice from. There you go. That's the one that was mentioned in that document we were just looking at. So again, it's if you want these, I can email you through the links. It's probably easier than writing them down and making a mistake.
Well, you got it written on the thing.
Yeah, I know, but if you type that all in, really easy to. You only have to get one or two letters wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas if I send you the link in an email, you can just click it. Okay, the other part of your issue resolution process is that you might actually have a procedure, but before I do that, this document's the one I was talking about from the union website about issue resolution procedures. So it's not an actual procedure per se, but it's the sort of information that could be in it. So what we've looked at really is a flow chart of the procedure. And it could be that might be all you might decide you're just going to have that. And it'd have to be a pretty cranky WorkSafe inspector that wasn't happy with the flow chart. Because like you said, it's easier to follow. And as you'll see in a minute.
Oh, this is just what we read just before.
Yeah. So that's the union's bent on it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be similar to what was in employee representation. Now, I had a bit of a surf around to see what actual procedures I could find. So this is where it's all written down in longhand. Who's responsible for what and when. So this one's the Swinburne one, and they seem to be mostly educational institutions that were up on the web.
Thank you.
As an actual procedure. So these are just sample procedures now for, so something like this, written all in words instead of flowchart.
I've seen similar things like this.
Yeah, and most workplaces will have something.
Yeah, and tell you who's responsible.
Yeah. Really, it's a standard format for any procedure. It doesn't matter what it's about. You'll have your scope of the procedure, and it'll go into say what the responsibilities of the different parties are. Or it could be something like this one, which is
Is that out of that? That's what we looked at before, isn't it? That?
Yeah.
that's very similar. That's it, but that was on the union website. That one. What have I done here? Did I only print one of those? Maybe that's what I did. Sometimes procedures will link to other procedures. But it's probably saved someone some word processing at some point in time instead of reproducing heaps and heaps of the new procedure. So this is the one I found on the web, just for you to have a look at, and the highlighted bits are where they're changes. This one's been reviewed, and the highlighted bits are where they've made some changes. That's just a 2-pager, that one.
So the other ones.
Yeah. I even know the educational institution to do something in 2 pages when they can do it in 10. Must have only read one of that one.
Let's go. Responsibilities, definitions.
Yeah.
So why don't we just copy this and give you this?
Well, well, like I said before, steal with pride. But
Hang on, so what one's this answering? Do we just?
I don't know. I don't think you've got a question for this, but it's something that you guys might be asked to do.
Yeah, it works.
At work.
Use it as
That's
a
what I'm
reference.
saying.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not just doing things for answers to questions.
No.
I'm trying to give you the tools that you might need if you ever moved into a full-on RG as well, which is where I think you're headed, Michael.
I hope so.
But even at work where you are now, they might already have a template.
Yeah,
For
I think we've
procedures,
got all that. Yeah.
That it's only a template there. You've got to put all the information in.
That's right. Yeah.
And so some of the information right in there. This is the one that they had at Monash. This will do it for now.
She's overloaded tonight.
Yeah, I know. Some of this we were actually meant to get last week and we didn't get up to it. And I thought, well, perhaps, will I give you procedures or won't
Oh,
I?
it's got the flow chart too, this one.
Yeah, so that one's got its flow chart inside it.
The template
As well as all the
there.
language.
Yeah. Beyond me.
Oh,
My
really?
brain wasn't working.
Oh, yes.
Document history.
Yeah, that's when you should put it away.
I did.
Ring Tracy, ring Trevor.
No, I just went, I quit, threw it in the corner.
Oh,
and
no,
left it,
that's,
And then came back.
yeah, good. You dare quit without talking to me, I won't be happy.
So you're not the only one. It's been going through my head the last week too. Scope said it, Morgan said it.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck this. It's like,
It's like, crap, I think I bit off more than I can chew.
that's what I've been thinking too. That's what
You've
I've
got-
also been
With the law stuff, you probably got the hardest unit up
Yeah.
front.
Yeah, but it
I
was
suppose-
That was that. It was mine. Mine's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, so
I'm
We've
not
been
against
given-
it.
we've been given it-
points.
You know what?
Hang on.
We've been given
I've been
it
even.
4 weeks
I
on the
have
law.
not
one.
even.
That's the thing.
Does it?
yeah.
We'll talk about it perhaps a little later. Because we're nearly finished this issue resolution stuff.
It's smart time.
Yes, it nearly is great time. So a lot of that's just information for you to put into your library. But every workplace, as part of their communication/consultation system, must have, by law, an issue resolution procedure of some description. Yeah, but my advice to you, keep it simple. But be upfront with your employees too. Some places try and hide that employees can write PINs. And really the only reason there should be no mention of a PIN is if you don't have a formal consultation system with HSRs. If you've got HSRs, you should have some sort of
Well, it's weird because I've just been thinking the amount of companies, like I've worked with a lot of different contractors over the years, a lot. The amount of times that we've never had a designated HR.
but you don't have to.
I know you don't have to, but when shit's hit the fan,
They want the employees to step up, do they?
yeah. Or they've just dealt with it themselves without,
Which isn't that successful.
no, without having the guys on the ground who's it's actually affecting.
Yeah. Yeah, because even though we looked at this a couple of weeks ago, where it says you have to consult, if you're the boss, you've got to consult with your employees, but it doesn't say you have to have HSRs. So you could consult
Area, isn't it?
in some other way though,
Yeah.
As long as you consult.
as long as you consult.
Yeah.
So it could be that it's done as part of a team meeting, and you have perhaps safety walkthroughs every now and again, so that it actually puts more on the boss to make sure they get out and be available to work if they're not going to have HSRs.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay,
I'm actually doing a safety walk at the moment and doing a safety check on all the lathes and everything.
Okay.
Make sure everything's working, all the guards.
collect that might be part of your next assessment.
No,
When you do risk management, because that's what you do.
YouTube.
Yeah, that's because we got some videos to have a look at that hopefully are showing barriers to consultation.
Sweet. So
Yeah.
we get to watch videos tonight.
Yeah, you're going to get to watch it. Maybe not all of those.
You'll get to watch one next week too.
You're going to do a video.
No, I found one on YouTube.
Oh, okay, cool.
About what?
As a resource for your,
Yeah,
yes,
it shows the
These days.
machine that we use.
yeah, well done.
That's next Wednesday. isn't it?
Yes, it is next
I know what
Wednesday.
I'm doing, but I haven't.
I
I know how I'm going to do it, but I haven't put anything to paper yet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking-
Neither have
I'm
I.
thinking I might just come here and wing it.
You need, if you're going to do that, just do some work on your training aids. So anything that you might need to bring with you to do a bit of show me as well as.
Oh,
send
Should
it
I
on
come
board.
in and show people?
I'll just
how
bring
to
some
stick each
salami and
other's
everybody will be
needles?
happy.
Yeah, you
and
can
think,
do that.
what a night.
Something like that.
Oh no, I'm not doing that.
You know, okay. Do pick something.
I
that
can do
you-
CPR.
Yeah, do pick something that you know quite well though.
Oh, I know CPR.
Anyway, we might have a break.
Yeah, it's good.
We'll have 10 minutes or so. Is that enough?
Yeah.
I did get a message from Deb. She's got family things, yeah, happening.
She did say, I think.
I went
No,
to
Jolene
work
said
early
she
this
wasn't
morning
coming.
and
Oh,
started
that's your
doing-
training needs analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the runs that people know.
Okay, yeah. But that's correct. Is that a safety one though?
No,
It's certainly one that HR need.
Yeah.
Because they need to know who they can ring up when you can't come in next Wednesday.
and then all the DCs and their license.
Yep.
Working with children, all that sort of
And
stuff.
you could argue that perhaps working with children and licensing is a safety thing.
That'd have to be sort of
It's
mandatory,
compulsory.
wouldn't it?
So,
Would that be mandatory?
Compulsory.
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that's
'cause-
right.
You don't know who's going to get on that bus.
Yeah, I have to have working with children check.
Yeah, of course it would. Yeah,
Why? I train adults.
yeah, but there's
My
16-year-olds going to tape here.
It could be, yeah, that's right. That's the theory.
Yeah,
But it cost me $80 every 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is.
Is it? I thought you get it
So
once
I was-
and that's it.
I was
No.
15 when I
Gotta
first come
renew
to
it.
tape.
And do you know, at the time when it first came in, I had a volunteer one because I was a guide leader. And they
The
wouldn't,
girl guides.
yeah.
Would you believe me if I said I did that when I was younger?
Oh, did you?
Well,
I
sister
did.
did
I got
too.
stabbed in the knee. I got
She was a
stabbed
brownie.
too.
Oh, they call it brownie or something.
I've been called Brownie for 30, 40 years.
I was a brownie and a guy.
More than 40 years, that's it. Because I was a brownie in the 60s, and then when my sisters went, they weren't brownies anymore, they were junior guys. Oh,
Yeah, so that was for the training analysis.
yeah, no, that
Trevor's.
oh, Sherry you did training analysis too.
Yeah.
We better talk to each other, hey?
Yeah,
So
so
you've got to do one for me. But you've got to do it for HSRs for me.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
it's not this one though.
yeah. Same principle, eh?
Yeah. Oh, Vicky's. Here we go, dinner. Banana. Ran out of everything else in the fridge. A banana and some bread.
Bananas are all right. Geez, I hope she gives us an extension too, like
Yeah.
4 weeks for Trevor. That was pretty good, eh?
The 13 questions, yeah, it's fine, but then you look at the projects and that's just so much work. When you're working full time, you haven't got time.
Still raining, I think.
Lightly.
Yeah, I pulled into Shep and it was just starting. By the time I pulled up here and parked, it was actually raining, which is good. I mean, we need rain for the farmers. No, it's all over. It's all finished.
Have you read the one in the booklet,
The what?
the assessment that we have to do?
Yeah.
You've been made responsible for overseeing the implementation of effective health and safety consultation participation process for your organisation as part of your supervisory responsibilities.
Yeah, create a sixth. Oh, the hell?
Workers in the organisation are largely unaware of the consultation and participation process. Create a booklet, 6 to 8 pages.
Yeah, but could be only 10.
Yeah, but that was driving me nuts on the weekend.
Did I start that?
Oh, I've got that one twice.
Yeah, but is that? Is that what to do with the ABC engineering?
I don't know.
I'm lost there.
Same to the end, everybody's probably got the same question.
I've got a million questions, but I can't think of them right now. That's awful.
Yeah, this is my 10-hour day work.
So what's next week?
It's only 8 and a
But you
quarter
start
hours.
late.
Start at 10:15. Or 10 o'clock and go through to 7:30. So it depends on whether I have to drive out to Kakadu, out over Ford Road, out near Rumballara, sometimes you get someone to go out there for your last run.
Oh, okay. The one down in Ford Road, you mean the actual dirt place.
Yeah, but Kakadu is the Conley Park.
Yeah.
Estate road.
Yeah. Who would I need to talk to suggest that somehow they will run on the people who go out to Billabong to get there without having to get across
The road.
the road after you drop them off?
That would be Evan or Roy.
It just needs to be like a worker bus, something that gets out there about 9 o'clock and leaves again at 4. The GB Connect used to bring people back into town, but they don't.
No, she said we can
And it's really hard
ask
for them.
questions.
Yeah.
That's right,
They've got to rely on getting a ride from someone.
We put in for an expansion of runs
Yeah, well, I started doing that. I left the other
12,
one, started doing
14
this
months ago.
one.
As far as I know, they haven't heard anything.
So that has to go to Metro buses.
Let's go through PTV. Then the government has to decide if they've got money to pay for it.
This is taking a sign.
But yeah, it wouldn't need to be everyone.
Yeah, it would. I don't know how it would work. So.
Yeah, because the one that comes,
I just scribbled it
this one goes every hour, it goes down to Tate,
Yeah,
but it only does the bottom end.
Do you get that?
That would be ideal if that one come up and
But-
probably won't happen until there's lights. at the corner.
because
Look at this right at the start.
that one waits at Wanganui for till
I reckon
26
you've got
past,
it somewhere.
25 past the hour.
Mhm.
It's supposed to leave at 19. So it's got a variation in route. Every school hour, 3:25 it leaves instead of 3:19. Then by the time you get into town, that's thrown out another
Yeah.
4 or 5 minutes. So you're 10 minutes late by the time you get into town. Then by the time you pick up Bush Street kids going out to Marketplace,
Yeah,
you're
so that one's
15 minutes late.
too early for them. So that's four.
Yeah. So if that one detoured around there and then back in.
I mean,
Well,
the next one after 4 would be fine.
well, even if the 4 o'clock one, if it doesn't leave till 4, well, it's supposed to leave out there at 5 past every hour.
Yeah.
But we never leave till 10 past because there's just not the call for it up in that area.
But it must turn around and go back along Bud Road or something.
Yeah. It goes through that road. So we could go down there as long as. Wouldn't be able to turn around and get out though.
No, it
Come back up
it'd probably
and
have
around.
to be the other way, the Billabong and the turn left. You know, I mean, they can cross them. My son does it all the time. I drop him off and walk with him. Or I just leave the beds and
It's a matter of trying to turn the bus around. So I needed to go back on route.
yeah. But they must turn around down and take something.
Now it comes down around behind the golf course, down
Yeah, but it sits there.
Regenswamp Road,
He sits there facing the highway.
and then turns right into that
Oh,
road.
he's still down that Bud Road, isn't he? So,
Yeah, it's before that road.
yeah. Okay, we better do some more work, guys.
Do it.
You need your learner resource for this bit. Got a white booklet. And we need to be on page 50. It's headed contribute to improving WHS consultation and participation process. And then with the subheading of contributing to the identification and assessment of barriers to those processes. Page 50. That's it.
This one. Oh,
This one? As long as it's not Trevor's.
No.
Just 50. Just 50.
Or just
Just 50.
Really?
There we go.
That looks like it.
That's what I need for that question.
what question? Okay.
Oh, there is a question about barriers to communication. Yeah. Do it.
Back and forth.
Do a bit of a. Trevor obviously uses it more than.
No.
No, hasn't even opened it.
We
No.
just
Haven't even opened Trev's book.
No. Really?
Right?
Oh, it's another resource that you've got.
Yep.
Yeah, Trevor reckons when you get up to cert 4 and diploma, you can read stuff. And his time with you is better spent on things that perhaps aren't in the book. Okay, so my question that I've put up there, and yes, I have got some websites there, and I've just realised the first two are actually linked. They're different things, though. Anyway, we'll work it out when we have a look at them. So it's really important that we do identify if there's something in the environment or with the people that are making our consultation less than optimum. So what makes consultation ineffective? And the simple answer to that is there's some sort of a barrier there. And that barrier could be a physical barrier. So it could be that you've got to go and talk to the boss about something, and the boss sits there behind his computer and behind his desk, and So the fact that he's got access to his emails might be a barrier to actually having an efficient, effective conversation with him or her. And this one really hit home with me when I was trying to learn how to use some of the computer software that we have to use. I was learning how to do online training. Hate it. Anyway, but it was really hard because the girl who was supposedly training me, we were at her computer, and every time a blooming email came in, she'd stop and look at it. I felt like saying to her, "Can you turn your emails off? And then you won't know that something's come in." But I was perhaps too shy to do that, if you can believe it. But it is really important to identify any barriers that you might have so that you can do something about it. And that's the second question. So let's have a look at some of the barriers to effective health and safety consultation. Now, I could have typed all these into the presentation, but I thought that was silly. So let's have a look what it says there on page 50. A barrier is anything that restrains or obstructs a process. Ineffective health and safety consultation and participation processes obstruct the sharing of health and safety information between the employer and the workers. They limit, I should say barriers to, ineffective, it's got ineffective at the start, that's all right. So if your consultation processes aren't working, then you're not going to have a lot of chance of actually getting your message across. They limit opportunities for workers to contribute to whatever it is that you're talking about, and can lead to unmotivated workers. So if the systems aren't working, are your workers going to use them? Probably not. So are they actually going to be part of any consultation that you might want to have? And that could be anything from what time smoko breaks are going to be right through to, hey, we've got some problems we need to sort out. Smoko breaks are pretty important though.
We don't get them.
Yeah, I know.
Don't get smoker.
Mm.
We get a 1 hour lunch break instead.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
And
That's
every
good.
award's different.
Because you'd get half an hour non-paid, half an hour paid, eh?
No.
You should,
You should.
because you don't have
By law,
smoke.
Yeah,
you've gotta
but-
yeah.
You've got to look at the individual awards.
Oh, well, yeah.
So even within people that I've worked with, where there's a different award, you've got different conditions. So it might be for some awards that they're actually not entitled to a 10-minute break. It's something that's one of the vagaries, if you like, of our human relations system, where we let individual occupations, for want of a better word, actually set their own.
It's hard to
And there's nothing that
write
says
it
that,
into a timetable.
yeah,
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, unless you're going to have somewhere that you can
you
stop
doing
at the end of
10-hour
the run for
shifts?
10 minutes.
10-hour shifts or?
This week is
So you
what?
just get
Is
your
that-
1 hour break in the middle
one
somewhere.
hour break.
Yeah, because usually you get a 15-minute and then half an hour lunch, but then if you work 10 hours, you get an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Should.
but again, that
Right.
depends on your award.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our award gives us
Construction
15 minutes,
award,
for 20 minutes for smoko in the morning, half an hour for lunch. And then if we do a 10-hour day, we don't get any extra. But if we do a 12-hour day, we get an extra 15 minutes in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
But then my wife, she works at Baker's Delight.
Yeah.
And she'll start at 6:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
And she'll go through to, and she'll, well, the most they give her is a 6-hour shift. No breaks.
Yeah, so that would be outside a lot of awards. So you've got to have a break once you've worked 5
Pretty
hours.
much 5 hours. Is
Yeah, but they don't.
Right?
They
Yeah.
won't give her a
Yeah.
break.
And I would check out what the award is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised if it's not 5 hours.
It depends how long
Yes.
she's worked for. She might be up for a bit of that.
She's been there about 5 years. Yeah, but now she wants to quit because they're just dropping her hours. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, she'd be better off
She's
somewhere
down to
else.
17 hours a week.
Jesus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just crap. So she's got another little job on the side. Gives more money too.
So ineffective procedures can lead to unmotivated workers. So that might be one of the reasons. If you've got workers who don't want to talk, have a look at how you're asking them to actually communicate and consult. Okay, so there's a list of barriers there. Inadequate access to technology or information. So that could be for looking at different roles within your workplace, if you like. Electronic communication works really well if it's part of the person's job to actually go and turn on a computer when they get to work. If they've got to go and turn the computer on just to see if they've got any messages, it's not going to happen.
So we got good at our work. When we clock on with the computer. When we clock off the computer.
Yeah,
And if we got messages, it'll come up straight away.
Yep.
Like you've got a message,
linked.
read.
Yep.
That's good.
no, that's a good way if you want to actually get people
Yeah.
doing it that way. So the unsupportive workplace culture could come because we've got crappy procedures. Cultural differences.
Mhm.
Are we meeting the needs of the different cultures within our workplace? And that would depend on what those cultures are.
Get them all in nursing.
Pardon?
You get them all in nursing.
Oh, okay.
You can get them everywhere these days.
Mm.
Everywhere.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as looking at what are the individual characteristics of the people doing the consultation. I guess the one, and this has come from years of just talking to people, I guess. But I noticed, and hopefully it's happening less, but in some cultures, because I'm a woman, if it's a fella I'm talking to,
Yeah, they don't listen.
they don't listen.
They don't even look at you.
They won't look at you, they won't have eye contact,
Mm.
and yeah, it really is tough.
That's right.
They find it hard getting on the bus when I'm driving.
Do they look down?
Yeah, well, they've got to ask for, tell me what sort of ticket they need.
All right.
So,
I reckon that's very disrespectful.
I think it is
Sorry.
too, but that's our culture.
Yeah,
our
that's
culture.
true too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very
There's
disrespectful.
centuries and centuries
Yeah.
of mansplaining. That's the only way.
It was interesting. I was coming across one day this week, and there was a lady who's a lawyer, and she's working in Afghanistan,
Shit, that'd be hard.
and yeah, and she was pretty open about what sort of things she was up against. And she said, really, from her point of view, it was probably actually better that she was a woman, because she said, if I'd been a man, there would be no way known that I would be able to represent a woman.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Whereas as a woman,
Yes, you can.
because she's providing the service, the
Yeah.
guys actually have to talk to her.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Their culture wouldn't let.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Should be
So how would we
excluded
do it
from
in,
50%.
say, in my workplace?
Yeah.
If we had three, let's just say Indians.
Yeah.
Right? And their language was very bad.
Right.
And I had to get some stuff across
Yeah.
there. What would be the best way?
Put them through an English literacy course.
Yeah, well, you could do that. That's the long term thing. They would have to be open to that. But you might need to look at perhaps computer programs that would convert written
Interpreter.
Yeah.
information
Yeah.
or use the interpreter service.
That's if they know the computer.
Yeah, but you could use the interpreter service over the phone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, if there was something really important that you needed to get that message to
Yeah.
them, you'd set it up with the interpreter service so that you could get some help.
Because it might have been 12 months ago, we had this Indian guy come to work. And like he was, I mean, so it sounds bad, but like he was only there for about a few weeks
Yeah,
because
so it didn't suit.
he just didn't know a word. And you tell him stuff and he'd be there,
Yeah, well, put yourself in his position. He wants a job.
Yeah, I know.
Of course he's going to tell you he understands.
But sometimes it's you tell him to do something this way and he wouldn't do it, and you'd have to stop him and say, no, we've got to do it like this, and you're trying to explain.
I worked with an Italian guy who was like that when I was the first year, second year apprentice. Could not speak a word of English.
But you talk, if you learn Italian, you talk with your hands.
He talked with his hands all the time. He ended up crushing my freaking fingers.
Oh, shit.
And that's the worry.
He used the overhead gantry crane.
Yeah, but that's what
And
I'm
I'm
saying.
going, do you know what you're doing? He's like, I got. That's what he keeps saying. I got. Yeah.
My dad was like that.
I go, no, yeah. But he ended up getting his load swinging. I went to steady it. I'm like, hey, stop. Went to steady it, and he came down with it. My fingers.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a mistake on your behalf. I would have just been out of the way.
Oh, no, I should have, but I was, I'd only been there. I hadn't even been there a week. Yeah. And I just thought, I've got to try and make a good impression here. I know what I'm doing
Which is
with
exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. And he ended up getting the sack. I felt really bad for him, but he ended up getting a job with his brother-in-law 2 factories up.
Oh, okay.
Seen him, and he's going like this. And looking at my fingers, and
He probably felt really bad.
and he's going like this. You good now? It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. I could sort of get what he was saying with his hands and the limited English he had, but
And it's getting pretty bad now because there's a lot of ethnic people out there, like a lot of Indians. I know in
multicultural, let
A number
anyone in.
of different races.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they don't understand English.
It's so
It's
multicultural
very
these
hard.
days.
My wife just started. I said she just started a job in a packing shed a couple of days a week, and she's the only. There's probably another 2 women there that are just Australian, but she reckons they're all Asians. They sit down for smoko, and they're all and she says you talk to them.
I find that incredibly rude.
Yeah, you talk to them and they don't understand the word. They say, yeah. But in the morning, every morning when they start work, they've got to be told what they're doing that day, and they've got a translator that translates.
Just to make sure that the message gets across.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't want anybody getting scalped.
But if you've got a translator, it's good. But if you haven't got a translator, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, there is an interpreter service.
Yeah.
And WorkSafe can help you out with that too. They've got a phone interpreter service.
Yep.
And they're also starting to publish a lot of their information in different languages.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, and that's coming out a lot with visa holders. But yeah, I know what you mean about the Asians. And then I still find my sister-in-law is Filipino. I still find it really hard to understand it. But when she gets to the other Filipinos, they just get off there.
Yeah.
And you think, what are they saying about me?
So maybe you could get your procedures translated into a different language and then hand it to them to read.
Right.
If they can read.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we haven't got any.
There's computer programs that will do that.
We haven't got any now, but I'm just saying if time comes or you went to work somewhere where they had a lot of people like that.
Yep, you would have to take that into account. How am I going to get information to and from these people?
I know as I said, my wife's other work, they've got a translator.
In different languages.
Don't know. Something to look at, perhaps.
And that's the way we're going to be because that's how it is now here in Australia.
I remember this one fella I had work under me. He was a Muslim, and we had to have a room for him to pray. And I was like, "You're actually taking the mick." And they're like, "No, Shikani, we're not." And I'm like,
And he has to get paid while he's taking
Yeah.
time to pray. as
"Yeah."
well,
And
because
like,
it's religious
I
beliefs.
swore he was taking the mick because
Religious
every
beliefs are the
like
biggest
hour on
culture
the hour
shock.
he's going, he's going, la la, and I'm just like,
A lot of places do
Are
that.
you joking?
Yeah, well, all
Like
the airports
places
and
do
that now,
Airports,
it doesn't
right.
matter where you go.
Yeah, hospitals, every hospital's got them.
Really?
Yeah.
Shows I've been out of hospital for a while.
No,
Jesus.
it's something that a lot of workplaces are doing that.
Yeah.
Hang on, you might have to have a little place on your bus.
Put a
yeah?
toilet in it first.
But it'd be hard for you guys if they started saying, oh yeah, well, you can come back to base
Yeah.
so that you can pray.
Come on through.
Mm.
You're out of William Moore.
Yeah,
Over
see,
to-
that's that.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I'm
It's
not
like
even going to
Bunnings,
get
it's
in.
No,
not gonna work.
we better not go there. That's
No.
perhaps
I
outside.
mean, that's right.
Yeah.
I just thought,
I
yeah, I was
disagree
just
with that.
asking the question, how would you?
Yeah,
I've got a
that-
Muslim lady that drives and it goes off and she'll sit there and drive and just say a prayer. And she's
Oh,
going
good.
and
so she's
she's
come up
adapting.
with a way
Yeah,
of
she's
that.
adapting.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
that's good. I'd respect that.
Mm.
But if I see someone stopping for 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes, that would be playing on my head all day, every day.
her phone will go off, the alarm will go off and
She'll just say a prayer
Good
and
on
it'll be
her.
done.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm.
Hey, she's still keeping her religion and
Yeah.
she's
Still
keeping
keeping her job.
Mm.
Yeah. Not taking the mickey.
I get the whole multicultural thing, but sometimes, yeah.
Well, it's frustrating because especially in nursing, you're understaffed all the time, and like there'd be me and him in a unit of 35 people that have high-end dementia, and like I'm left on my own, which is illegal anyway, because he needed to go and pray. And like I said to him, I said, mate, can't you just mumble something as we're walking? Like, no, because you get jack of it because like I worked a lot with like people that suffered from psychosis and stuff, and they're going to attack me, and I've got no backup.
Yeah, and that's the discussion you need to have with your employer
Yeah.
and say, hey,
Well-
if we're going to let this fella do this, you need to get me some cover.
No, I said to her, I went in and seen my boss, and I said, right, I said, you've got two options. I said, I'm going to quit. I said, or you're going to move him to a different shift. I said, because we're running night shift, mate. I said, and this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's
But
like,
limited staff
oh,
and I'm in danger.
well, that's what I said to her. And he's like, oh, no, I can't. I've got to stop to pray. And I'm like, listen, I'm like, Linda, we can't. We don't have time. And we just didn't. Like, if it was day shift and there was more of us, fair enough.
Yeah, you can cover it.
Walk and pray. Motherfucker, walk and pray.
Mumble. What did you say, mumble?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at some of these other ones.
All right.
Lacking support from your managers. So again, if you were in that situation, you would need to follow your workplace procedures to get that dealt with. And you don't pick on a person, you just attack the system, if you like, rather than the individual. That's how you deal with it, though.
I know.
You attack the system. So hey, this isn't working.
Just mumble something.
Language and literacy we've probably done to death over the last few weeks. Just make sure that any material that you're putting out is suitable for everyone, because otherwise it is going to be a barrier. If someone looks at a page like that and their literacy levels aren't up to it, they're just going to say, oh, later.
And they don't even look at it.
And they won't look at it. So that's really important. We're looking specifically now at barriers. Do rosters and shift work create any barriers? So we have to do something to make sure that everybody, regardless of roster, regardless of shift work, is involved in any consultation that's happening. The unrealistic timeframes one, the boss is in a hurry because he's realised he's nearly out of time to get this report done. Well, sorry, the boss's report deadlines aren't our problem, but if that's happening again, you would need to be looking at the procedures again, not attacking the boss, but looking at the processes and saying, okay, when we've got feedback due on such and such a date and you need worker input, the worker input has to happen the week before, or whatever you need it to do.
Yeah.
So you've still got time for the consultation to happen. The others are probably the dispute resolution process is there. Maybe if it's got too many steps in it. That might be one of the reasons why it doesn't work. Or if it's just cumbersome, like you saw in some of those flow charts how it's not a one procedure fits all type situation. It needs to work for you. So workers complain they don't know what's going on in a business because they never have team meetings, or their supervisors don't actually present the relevant information at team meetings. Team meetings is actually a really good way to pass on anything because you've got a captive audience. And if you were in a safety role, you would be looking at not so much running the meetings yourself, although Michael, you might, given the size of your workplace, but just suggesting that they actually happen so that you've got an avenue for passing on any safety information that needs to be passed on to the rank and file workers.
So with our team meeting, toolbox meeting every morning, it starts right on 6, and when the boss does it, if somebody's late, that's another thing for him. Like, because if you're late to work, if you're not there for the toolbox, only lasts a few minutes. Depends on what's going to. And then if you haven't come to work and it's over, then you've got to go to the boss and say,
what did you talk about?
What did you talk about? And that gives him a reason to give him that, and then to rip him for being late.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
So it's the two.
Although, yeah, I've been late a few times in the last couple of weeks because of pile-ups on the swimming causeway.
Well, actually, he was late the day before yesterday. Gee, did he cop it up? we ran the meeting, and then when he showed up it was about 20 minutes late, actually. We were already started working. But as soon as he walked into the workshop, everybody started running.
Did I tell you about it was last week?
With the police done that.
Yeah.
Police,
yeah, it took over half an hour.
some people got stuck in that for 2.5 hours.
2.5?
Yes.
What? They got stuck in what?
Oh, last week, I'm coming in, I think it was Monday, and I got to the Chuka Road lights and McLennan Street, and traffic was banked up, and I thought, oh shit, this must have been a really bad accident. Anyway, eventually got round the corner, and it took 35 minutes to get to Kidstown from that set of lights.
Yeah, pretty much McDonald's.
Because the police had a camera set up that was photographing number plates, and then they were pulling anyone in who had an unregistered car or if they were a possible person of interest. And they were getting diverted into Kidstown. But all the traffic was getting pushed into one lane at Kidstown. Yeah. They said, oh, but we've got 70 people.
Yeah.
For different things. But my husband was there because he had to go over and pick up, there'd been a bingle, and he said when he went and picked the bingle up, which was about 8:30.
Didn't one of the cars run into the back of one of the police cars or something?
Oh, did they? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was about 8:30, 8:45, and he said there was nobody in Kidstown at that point.
Oh.
So they got all their wrong people after 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
Yeah, so we were, pretty much over half an hour late for work. Anyway.
Good time to do it.
Yeah, well, that's what they said.
Yeah, well, technically it was for them, but for the average Joe citizens, no.
It wasn't great. So how might we find out about these possible barriers? Because you're not necessarily going to be on the ground all the time. So this is over on page 51 now. It could be personal observation. So you might actually see some of these things happening. And some of the standard communications ones where people perhaps are in an environment where there's too much going on. Probably not a good place to have a conversation/consultation. What do you reckon? Or anyone trying to have a chat with you while you're driving the bus?
Always.
What, passengers or the boss?
Oh, mainly passengers, occasionally on the radio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've just got a new boss, and I'm just driving back from Melbourne, and I've just pulled up for lunch, and my phone rang, and I didn't quite get out of my bag in time. I saw it was this new boss. I thought, oh, do I ring him back or not? I thought, oh, I better. So I rang him back, and we're having a conversation, and he said, oh, you're on your way back from wherever? I said, well, if I was actually on the road, I wouldn't be talking to you. That's my policy. I even hands-free, I don't talk on the phone while I'm driving. And they'll actually pulled up to have a feed. Oh, thanks for talking to me then. Okay. But he tends to think that driving time is a time when he can ring people up and have a chat. Not on as far as I'm concerned. He'll learn.
No, it's short and sharp on the radio.
Yeah, it has to be.
We're coming into town this morning and the Harris Scarf bus stop was blocked. I'm
Okay.
down working in there.
Yep.
And it's one of our busiest stops, so I had to get on.
Oh, that's the one on
Find out.
Union Street.
Yeah, find out what was going on, and it was blocked all day. They had a gas leak.
Oh, okay. That wasn't just someone parked in the spot.
No, they were digging a hole, and it's still there, so it'll be blocked tomorrow too.
So, actually, talking to people, it says interviews there. It doesn't have to be a formal interview. It might just be one of your relationship building chats that you're having with people. Oh, how do you find consultation with the boss? Are you getting information about whatever it is that you're trying to find out about? Feedback forms. We use feedback forms for lots of things, don't we? So if you're going to use it for consultation, you would have to design one that's particular to that thing, to that particular topic. And it could be that maybe you do it as a presentation at work. So Michael's got to tell people about this new process that they're putting in place. So we've slightly extended our team meeting. It's going to be half an hour, and at the end of it, you'll perhaps give out something, maybe some questions. Please tell me what you thought about. Was this the best way to give you this information? Might be one of the questions. But you don't want yes/no questions.
How would you?
What was good about this presentation? What would you change?
What is your preferred method?
Yeah, what's your preferred method of receiving information?
I know what would happen in our workshop. Nobody would want to do. Just go to work. I don't do that. We do enough paperwork with swims and.
Well, just ask it at the end. Ask it as verbal questions at the end. Another one that I use when I'm training, it's just to give around, and you can do it with post-it notes. Just write down one thing that you really liked and one thing that you didn't like. And that gives you some information on how it's going. Exit interviews, that's when someone leaves. Depends why they're leaving.
You wouldn't give them an interview.
I was exiting
Yeah, a lot
by
of.
the whole panel.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
Why are you
because
leaving? Tell us what we're doing wrong.
Literally, that's why.
Yeah.
They wanted to know why, because they brought me in to save the joint, and I just threw my hands up after 12 months and said, I'm done.
So that's the last thing I'd go to when I'm leaving.
Oh no, because I got to go in there and I let loose.
You laid it all out.
Oh yeah.
I'm going. When are you finishing up? Tomorrow? Next week? Today? Oh, sure. Yeah. Good luck with it. See you later. Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, so really what we're doing there, this is just dropping down. So all those things, it's no good just getting the information. You've got to do some sort of analysis of it. If you're doing it orally, you've got to listen. Sometimes that can be the biggest barrier. Just not listening. Are you picking the right time to actually have your meeting?
Yes,
Meetings go better when they're in the mornings.
I think so.
Yeah,
in
but
the
I wonder too, because in the mornings we start at 6 and everyone's half asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just walk in and you can
Even
just
just
see
after
people just
smoke,
standing there and thinking,
Yeah, it depends on the reason for your meeting.
Yeah.
If it is, as you say, it's to just do an update on where all the projects are at.
Yeah.
Maybe
Restarts are good in the mornings, but like a meeting, they find when they do them in the afternoons, everyone's.
Yeah, and not straight after lunch.
Nah, if you're doing before lunch, in between smoke and lunch.
I went to a presentation. I thought I was going to the presentation and then lunch. And as it turned out, it was lunch then the presentation. And the presentation was in a really warm auditorium. That's what was happening to me. I felt myself a few times. Mind you, it was about aggression and violence in the health system. Stuff I'd heard before, but I thought I should go just to see if there's anything different.
We had a duty to start this year. Got heated out at work, hit 46 degrees.
Yeah.
That's finally. Knock off, but you have to go into town. We've got a compulsory, wasn't a, sort of like an induction safety brief.
Yeah.
Just to
Compulsory briefing.
briefing.
Yeah.
And we got into town. All power was out at the Sherborne, at the pub where we were doing it. They took us upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
There's no aircon.
Yeah.
46, 47 degrees outside. No aircon inside.
Yeah.
The water was going like that. Everyone in everyone in that bloody room was sweating.
Oh.
After 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
they said, nah, just go home.
That would have been the days where
Yeah,
we had brownouts.
Brownouts.
Yeah.
They actually turned the
Yeah.
power off.
They deliberately turned it
Yeah.
off in each place around Shepparton and
Yeah.
Jeep. Yeah.
You should try driving around through all those traffic lights.
Oh,
What's brown
that would have been
It's where
fun.
they turn off blocks of power to stop
Yeah.
it from burning out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a 47-degree
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead
And
of
it
having
was
a
like a
total
week of
blackout,
it.
Shep white,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
turn off.
Yeah.
Oh, 2,
So
3
it
weeks.
wasn't
wasn't
really-
Yeah.
30, 40 minutes,
And
then
that's
turn
where-
it back on,
Yeah.
turn it off somewhere
Yeah,
else.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
like
where
a
the-
rolling.
The people who live near the hospital don't usually have to go through it
I've never heard of
because
it.
the hospital's in.
Never heard of it. There you go.
Because the worst thing was, it was there, and I rang the missus. I said, we lost power at home. She's like, no, I'm not sweet. I'll go home in the aircon.
Yeah.
I walked through the front door.
It was
The
your
aircon
turn,
on.
wasn't
She
it?
goes, the power went out about 2 minutes ago. I didn't want to tell you. Oh,
She wanted you to come home.
We got a few people getting on the bus that day.
Yeah.
To go somewhere cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart idea.
Supermarkets never usually
But
use power.
It was
either.
probably only 10 degrees cooler in the bus.
Yeah,
Because the
that's-
door's opening all the time.
Yeah.
And they struggle to keep up with it.
Yeah, well,
All the glass.
yeah, well, I got the coach back on one of those days. I think it was 42, 43. The aircon shit itself on the coach. And I was on the sun side of the window on the bus. And with all these backpackers that didn't speak English, it stunk. So I'm not doing this. I'm driving my car after 1 year every day from now on. So I drove out every day after that. That was it.
Middle of the morning shit like that.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay. So there's a little bit more reading there that you can do, a couple more, some
I'll get
ideas
sidetracked.
on what you might put in place to remove or act on some of those barriers. Yeah, we're not going to do activities out of there. We're going to have a look at some videos.
You know, it'd be so much easier
What?
if we did this and then those questions. I will pick
No,
that.
those questions aren't good enough though. They don't tick all the boxes. And they're not actually that easy. Not actually.
Huh? I answered
I think I would have been just much better if we got that.
Oh, okay. So you were doing it before we covered it, were you?
Yeah.
30 years ago.
I
Okay.
know what my shifts are like.
So I've tried to pick some YouTube clips that give us some barriers that we can actually have a look at so that you get something in your head. This is an update on who's on first and what's on second.
It's fewer Asian guy.
Looks like it.
Mr. President, Condoleezza Rice is here to see you.
Good. Send her in.
Yes, sir.
Condoleezza Rice was black.
Good morning, Mr.
She was
President.
white.
Oh, Condoleezza, good to see you. What's happening?
Well, Mr. President, I have the report here about the new leader in China.
That's great, Condi. Let's hear it.
Mr. President, who is the new leader of China?
Well, that's what I want to know.
But that's what I'm telling you, Mr. President.
Well, that's what I'm asking you, Condi. Who is the new leader of China?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy in China.
Who?
The new leader of China.
Who?
The Chinaman.
I'd
Who
be
is leading China? Mr. President,
What are you asking me for?
I'm telling you who is leading China.
Well, I'm asking you, Condi, who is leading China.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Will you or will you not tell me the name of the new leader of China?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yasser Arafat is in China. I thought he was in the Middle East.
That's correct, sir.
Then who is in China?
Yes, sir.
Yasser is in China.
No, sir.
Then who is?
Yes, sir.
Yasser.
No, sir.
I need to know the name of the new leader of China. So I want you to get me the Secretary General of the United Nations on the phone.
You want coffee?
No,
You don't want coffee?
no. But now that you mention it, I could use a glass of milk. And then get me the UN,
Yes, sir.
not Yasser. The guy at the United Nations.
Coffee?
Milk. Will you please make the call?
And call who?
Well, who is the guy at the UN?
No. Who is the guy in China?
Will you stay out of China
Yes, sir.
and stay out of the Middle East? Just get me the guy at the UN.
Coffee?
All right. With cream and 2 sugars. Now get on the phone.
Hello. Rice here.
Rice? Good idea. And get a couple of egg rolls too, Condi. Maybe we should send some to the guy in China and the Middle East. Maybe there's Chinese food in the Middle East. I don't know.
That might sort of rock my boat. What's the blocker there?
The names.
She's
Jargon,
dog shit.
in a way, or some bit of slang. No, I'm not saying slang. It's total
She's a
misunderstanding, eh?
How could she have said it so it didn't sound like she was asking a question?
The name of the guy.
The name of the guy in
Yes.
China's name is Hu.
Yeah.
HU.
The Chinese
Yeah,
leader's
HU.
name is
Is
Hugh.
Hu.
HU.
Yeah, exactly.
Approaches to communication. A man is sitting
It's like a
across the
telemarketer.
table from his boss.
Hello,
That's
sir.
all right.
You have a problem with your computer?
That was one of my biggest problems, actually. There's some really good content, but there was just detraction because of some of the accents. Yeah. Actually, next one's not bad. No, I just got to click this just to. Oh, it's the same one. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
same
you
one.
put it in twice.
But two different addresses. Okay, we can look at that. This one's a little bit more academic. So it actually has got some barriers, but you might want to take some notes with this one.
This video, we're going to talk about common barriers to effective communication. I'm going to angle all of these to professional settings, so let's get into the details. Hello again, friends. Alex Lyon here. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, Communication Coach is here to help you with your professional development, to help you get to that next level of leadership so you can be a blessing and raise up all the people around you. In this video, we're going to talk about common communication barriers. And as we talk about this list of 3 groups of 3, I'd like to ask you, which one do you want to work on the most? So as we look at this list, feel free to make a comment in that section below the video. So in the first group of 3, we're going to talk about barriers that involve words. So the first one is language use. So one of the ways that we get caught up on language and misunderstand each other is because we're being too technical. A lot of times we have an area of expertise that we've learned a lot about and we're quite good at. And if we use that overly technical vocabulary, all that jargon with people, it can cause a real barrier. So we have to remember to speak in everyday language, plain English, as I like to say, to connect with people in a more natural way. At the other end of the spectrum, sometimes we are much too abstract. We're talking in vague, ambiguous terms, and that can cause a barrier as well. And in those cases, you might have to be just a little bit more detailed in what you're talking about so people can connect with it. The next way we use words that can cause a barrier is the way we organize our words. So if you're talking in a stream of consciousness, rambling, disorganized way, it's going to be very hard for people to follow what you're talking about. So instead, what you want to do is give an orderly presentation of ideas. Let's say you're in a conversation or a meeting. You want to give some main points and stick to your message.
Just with that, know your stuff and speak in whole sentences. It's really hard for the person that you're talking to if you start something, an idea, and then you get halfway through your sentence and you move on to the next bit before you've actually finished the sentence. It leaves your person over there thinking, well, Is she actually finished? Yeah. Really intelligent lady, I know. She does it all the time. Her brain's probably going at 5,000 miles an hour, and her mouth can't keep up, so she leaves all these ideas hanging. We don't want to do that. We want to actually finish whatever it is that we're talking about before you go on to the next thing. It's not to say that you have to be 100% grammatically correct, but you're leaving a sentence not finished. It's a surefire way that your listener is going to think, hey, what did I miss?
Be clear and concise, in other words. And the third way that words can become a barrier is information overload. If you're on the other end of this, you know what I'm talking about. Someone's talking at you for an extended period of time and it just gets overwhelming. It's very hard to keep track of everything they're saying. And so you don't want to be this person on your end of the conversation. You want to take lots of talking turns, take short talking turns and bounce the conversation back and forth. There's lots of checking in a back and forth pattern of conversation, much more opportunity to clarify if anything needs to be clarified. So those are the three ways that we get barriers and experience barriers around words. We'll turn now to people's background. And the first one is our attitudinal differences. So we were raised a certain way, we have a whole set of life experiences, and a lot of times we might have a bias toward a person or a topic. So as soon as they bring up a particular topic and start talking about it, we might have a resistance to that, and that can cause a big barrier. We might have a lack of interest, we might be preoccupied. These attitudinal differences based upon all of the opinions we've had up to this point in our lives can become a barrier. So we have to make sure we don't tune out as soon as they bring something up that we don't care as much about. Another area of a background is our demographic background. So if we're a certain age, we come from a certain culture or gender or status background, all of these are filters. Not really, my age is not necessarily a filter, but because I came from a certain generation, I might see what you're talking about a certain way. I might care about some things more than others. So those demographic background cues can signal a kind of attitudinal difference that I might have toward a topic. So you might have a lot of trouble relating to someone who's 40 or 50 years older than you, and it might be obvious, but sometimes even a difference of 10 or 20 years in the workplace or between a man and a woman, the differences can be a little bit exaggerated or from one culture to different. We develop a common sense based upon our background that can become a barrier. And the third area under our background barriers are our triggers and filters. So you have a common sense that you've developed your whole life about the way you see the world. And if you hear something the wrong way, the other person might not have meant it that way, but maybe you heard it that way through your filter. They might have pushed your hot button, and now you're upset, you're seeing red about a particular topic, and that comes from your background. You came up a certain way, and they might be quite innocently and genuinely talking about something, but you heard it another way. So keep in mind that you have filters and triggers that could be affecting as they come from your background. So those are the different ways our background can influence us. Let's look at the next group of people.
Just before he does that, is there any questions? When I watched this afternoon, I thought, is he really telling us anything there?
Way.
What's he telling us?
I'm also like how to talk to people.
Know your audience is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And where he was coming up with the demographic, if you wanted to talk to someone and perhaps they have grown up in a different time to you, you need to put whatever it is that you're talking about into a format that they're going to latch onto something.
There's more communication towards others and
The person that you're
listening to them
talking with is the important person, not you.
Yeah.
The whole communication's got to meet their needs. Yeah, so say, I don't know, you're going to use a music background or something like that, you probably wouldn't pick something from the 60s was pretty good music, but you probably wouldn't pick it for someone who'd grown up listening to music from another era. 60s era. Yeah.
That's what I was raised on. Good times.
So just think about it. Think about the person or the people
You're talking to.
that you're talking to.
And these all have to do with what I call physical barriers. So the first and most obvious one is the physical distance that we often have now in professional settings. We do a lot of our work on email or we're texting or online. And so that physical distance can become a barrier because we're losing a lot of the nonverbal cues. If you can't see someone's face and you're not face to face, you might misunderstand the other person or not really get the humor that they might be using or their warmth that could come across in face-to-face conversation. It's not really communicated once you have the physical distance and you're using technology. Another area of physical barrier could be noise. So maybe you're in a noisy physical environment and that's causing a barrier. Sometimes there's noise in the communication system that you are using. So your messages are getting garbled or not making sense. That can also cause some problems. And the last physical barrier is what I'm calling it a physical barrier because I don't have a better way to describe it. Sometimes our physical ears don't work so well. For example, you might have a hearing impairment. I know a lot of people that have hearing impairments, and that can cause the barrier in communication effect. I personally have the hearing impairment in my left ear, causing me a lot of trouble. And so when I'm talking to people, I normally have to look right at them and focus so I can hear the best way I can and really see what they're saying as well. Another physical barrier is sometimes we come from a different place. And so over time, we have a different language that's part of us. And maybe the other person is not speaking the same language when they were growing up. So now we're both speaking English, but there's that physical mind difference that I might literally hear your words differently because you're speaking with a different accent, a different rate of speech. It's not that I'm not listening to you and paying attention, I care, but physically I can't necessarily keep up because my ear is not as tuned in and my mind is not as sharp on that particular type of language. Now, if I were trying to speak your language, I would be having a lot of trouble too. But in a conversation, this becomes a barrier for both people involved, no matter what language you are speaking. So you have to realize this and be much more patient in a situation like this. So these are the 9 barriers, the 3 groups of 3 that I came up with based on all the research and thinking and reflection that I've done over the course of my professional career. And as you look at this list, which one do you feel like gives you the most trouble? What barrier do you experience the most? I would love to hear your comments in that section below that I came up with based.
I'll just give you that so they're a little bit different to what we've got in the book, but there's still barriers to effective communication. Can we get those down? Don't have to.
All day.
Got him.
You got it? Well done.
Got him.
Yeah.
And noise could perhaps not just be what we would term noise, it could be anything that's a distraction. You have to watch the road. That's noise for you.
Yeah, I'm so bummed from sitting for 10 hours.
Oh, okay. I just
So I stand up.
thought perhaps you were one of those people who can't sit for very long. Trevor's got to sit down, stand up desk now.
No, it's just, I've been sitting for 10 hours. Legs break.
It's like that, doesn't it?
Actually, our girls in the office have got stand up, sit down.
Push a button?
No, not that.
That's what Trevor's got.
No, they've got to manually do it by hand.
Still hardly ever see. He's got a splash desk, but works everywhere else. That one's finished. I'll look back and see. I've got a couple of others that are probably worth a look at. Oh, I did say thank you.
Was she watching?
No, she wasn't in a place where she could. She's just got some family and she's happy. Actually, there was one. Do you mind if we look at one?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I don't mind at all.
I have to ask you, Dave, do you know sign language?
I knew it when I was a little kid. I got taught it.
Because I know a fair bit of sign language.
Yeah, I got taught it in preschool and up to about grade 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then more after that. And I don't
you had
know
the hearing
anything
aids, yeah.
because I got the hearing aids.
I've got to make this.
I'm actually thinking of trying to do a course and relearning it.
I think I don't know whether we've got it at the moment. But we have had Auslan.
Oh, have you? Yeah.
So my adopted mum's mum, she was deaf and mute.
Yeah.
So like me and her communicate a lot in sign language, and like my daughter learns it at school too.
Oh, cool.
So it could be another way that you actually need to put communication into a workplace. In lots of our noisy workplaces where, noise is an issue, well, it might not be the formal Oz language, lots of sign language comes out.
Let me tell you, one of the, I'll tell you something for nothing. I looked after an Italian lady, right? And she had dementia, but she could remember everything to do with Auslan, all of it. And she taught other people.
Yeah.
Like she'd sit down with other residents and she'd teach them like they were school kids. And it was actually really cool to watch because they did pick it up, even though they were losing their mind. Yeah. They could still pick it up and remember it because it's to do with physical.
It's the hands, yeah.
That's where, in all honesty, that's where I'm lucky with the job that I do. It's probably the most perfect job for me with my hearing impairment because it's all me telling the crane driver what to do with hand signals or a whistle or on a radio.
Yeah.
It's not him talking to me, it's me talking to him.
Right.
And it's either, hand signals, whistles, or talking on a radio. So I really don't have to listen or pay, because I use so much energy, time to listen, I can concentrate all my efforts onto the job because I'm the one giving the direction.
Okay, so you haven't got a feedback loop there anyway?
Every now and again, there's Doc will talk back, but it's more, I'm the one slinging up the load and then telling him, okay, we're right to lift up. If I need him to move left or right. The only bit of feedback loop would be, is there any more lifts after, how many more lifts have we got? And that's usually after I've already landed the lift. So I'm not concentrating on it. But I'm sort of hit my perfect job for my disability. If that makes sense.
Great way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one place where I worked for a little while, not very long, and they made jam, and the jam hooker was up in the roof. They used gravity to actually fill the jars.
Yep.
So they'd send the sample down to us to test, and we test it, and then we walk outside the lab to where they could see us, and the number of fingers on this hand told them how many kilos sugar put in, and the number of fingers on this hand told them how many gallons of water. And we had to have gallons because we didn't have enough fingers for 2 litres. So it was just a way that we communicated with the guys who were way up in business.
I remember
go for it.
when I was a little kid, we used to do water, we used to have flood irrigation. And we used to go out in the middle of the night one day. And I used to be up where the channel was, and he was down the other end to see if the water had to be closed off on that road. And he'd be there with a torch. If you went like that, and I'd see the torch, and if it went up and down, I don't mean close, if it went like that, move to the next one.
So we'll figure out a way
That's good.
to communicate for a given situation, and really that's what we've got to do at work as well.
The reason I learned sign language, and I promise you this is God's honest truth, there was one night I was about 16 and I was at the service station with another friend of mine, and this man was there trying to pay for his fuel, but he couldn't communicate because he was deaf and mute, and the bloke behind the counter was getting extremely frustrated with him. And me and him, we communicated through text message, and he thanked me and everything else. And he's like, we'd love to catch up for coffee. And I went back to my mum and I said, I want to learn sign language because I think everybody should know something, especially with Auslan. It's so easy.
I've got a mate who's deaf, and he knows. He can talk, but not very clear. But he knows the language. He's I think, geez, I'd love to know that. Because I see him talking with other people, and I'm just fascinated. And I'll ask him to say, what did you say to him like that? And he'll tell me. And,
So I used to know it, and then because I don't use it, I haven't used it.
If you don't use it,
but I reckon if I start learning it again, it'll come.
It probably will come back.
That was 30-something years ago. So
you'd think it'd come back. But my mate reckons it's changed a bit now. It's not like the old.
I think it was 30 years ago.
Listen, I wasn't even born then, okay, guys? Jeez.
30 years ago, I already had 2
I'm old
kids.
enough to be a mum.
It's all right.
If that's the case.
I'm only a baby. I'll be 26 in November.
26.
Oh,
that'll-
My kids are old.
Oh, Jesus.
That's
I'll
11
just
years
pick on
on
me
you.
at once. It's
My
all
youngest,
right.
my youngest is 24. My oldest is 31. 2. No, 32.
It makes me feel like I've got 11 years on you.
Oh, Jesus. Right.
My eldest is 39 in a few weeks.
Yeah, no, my oldest is 32. And I've got a 30.
Anyway, this one's a more of a cartoony type one as well.
Don't look it.
It's cultural and it's disability.
Excuse me? Hello? Hey! I'm a human being. If you don't want to help, at least say so.
Hello, I am deaf. I may have trouble comprehending you. Thank you for your consideration. Usually, I read your lips to understand you.
Oh.
If you like, you could let this convert your speech to text for me.
Okay. Could you tell me how to get
Would you try again? Attention passengers. All is well. Thank you. Low power shutting down.
Oh.
Oh, yay!
I just missed a bit.
Attention passengers. Line 4 is delayed for 1 hour.
Oh.
Thank you.
You wouldn't say nothing either, eh?
So what did we have there? We had
Ways to
a
communicate.
cultural expectation as well.
Yes.
She sort of thought about
Yeah. I
taking
actually
it.
thought she was going to.
Yeah. But it just shows how you see someone in a public place, you just assume. Like she assumed you could hear her.
I remember seeing a CSI one, and the kid was killed. They eventually found the perpetrators, and they asked why, and they said because he ignored us. He was deaf.
He was deaf.
Couldn't hear them. They were approaching him from behind.
Wow.
So again, a message for us to know our audience and make sure that we cater to it. Try not to spend too much time talking to the whiteboard for you guys. It does make a difference. I can't remember what that one was.
You guys sounds Slovakian or something.
Oh, yeah, it's more than the name. They don't say you guy.
You,
You're gay.
you're gay.
You're
You're gay.
I'll show you. None of them are very long.
I need to remember to bring a jump.
It's a Russian or something.
cold.
Some men have style.
You cold.
It's not bad.
Others
I mean,
have
I've got a
class.
job.
I think they turned off the
And there are very few that have a dangerous mix.
It was hot before, and now it's cold.
He is the most interesting man in the history of the city.
Go ahead, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. There's no smoking here in the job center.
name?
I'm Monica. Me? No, I'm a pretty straight up girl. College is a different story. It's young, you know. Well, now I'm strictly deadly.
What are you talking about? You're gay.
Oh, you're gay. That's so great. I bet it must be so much easier for you here in the US.
Oh, no, I'm not gay. You're gay.
No, as I said earlier,
What is my name?
I don't know, sir. You haven't told me your name yet.
Yeah, I told you, you're gay.
Okay, I get it. You're an outright homosexual.
No, I'm not homosexual. I am strong, sexy man like bull.
Okay, for yourself, I have lots of gay friends.
Not gay.
Sorry, I know you're new to this country, but normally people don't get the conversation with sexual.
You don't believe that.
You know, I don't know what kind of fantasy you have here about a gay man and a gay woman, but I'm not your girl.
This bull.
You know, it's guys like you that make me want to switch teams.
Yeah, there's a few outtakes from it.
Yeah, right. And big and strong like a boot.
Oh,
So again, similar to the one with
yeah.
George Bush, just not being really clear.
Mm.
My name is.
Yeah,
My name
neither
is-
of them
you're
really
gay.
made me
No.
it,
No, exactly.
which if you're not sure, although she was pretty sure he was telling us she was gay.
Yeah.
When there does seem that there's an apparent problem, you address the problem, you don't keep digging yourself into the hole.
Take the shot.
Oh, this one's a non-verbal one.
Okay, all right, so let's have Matthew then start.
This is like Chinese whisper.
With no words.
Yeah.
We're really starting to do something here.
Oh my God, that changed.
Not sure where that came from.
Oh.
No, they just changed it up.
Oh, nice.
No talking.
Really?
Okay, so what do you think it is? Okay. And let me get a picture of what the word was. What sentence
Falling
was.
off the bike.
So words are pretty important, aren't they?
Yeah. Because then so is paying attention.
Yeah. Well, and do you think they're all actually being actively involved in the?
No.
No, they thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
But if they had actually
Some
paid
of them
attention.
were, but they were more embarrassed
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
about doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas if everybody had given it a red hot go, we might have
Might
still
have
had
got, yeah.
riding
Riding
the bike
and falling off.
the other end.
It looked like that at the start.
Yeah, there was a few of those sort of ones out and about. So not all your communication is going to be using words. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Really is. I still love little kids, and I don't know where they get it from. Yeah, little 2-year-old. Now he's starting to say me more. But if he wants you to do something, or if he doesn't like it, just gives you the look. What you talking about, man?
Actually, my little granddaughter, first time tonight on FaceTime, she said, bye, bye, bye.
Oh, okay.
First time.
How old?
Yeah.
13 months.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. We just got a cackle out of our boy the other night. First time he's cackled.
Oh,
Hasn't
yeah.
laughed yet. It's
That's
nearly 4
awesome.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
Oh, he'll be
Yeah.
getting belly laughs soon.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was. It was a bit of a. I
Yeah.
was like, do that again, and he wouldn't do it again.
Look, husband came home and said, Lucas said pop. But he wouldn't say it again.
Yeah.
But by gee, if I go there without pop,
Where's Bob?
he's looking. He wasn't saying it, but he was actually doing the whole look around.
Yeah.
You could see his communication though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poppy's more important, I think. Perhaps a couple more and then we'll do some questions. Oh, it's 20 gone.
Sleeping was one pleasure. The carpet is all shiny.
There's some noise around.
Sure, it was an accident. Just a minute, Dad. Your latent hostility toward me has been building through the years, little by little, until you finally struck the Achilles heel of my nature, the Berber carpet. I did not do this on purpose. No, I suggest you dig deep into the twisted caves of your subconscious, where malicious acts abide, clothed in the robes of plausible excuses. For the last time, this was not malicious, it was an accident. I don't think you know the difference. Yes, I do. That was an accident. This is malicious.
I don't know why I put that one up. I just thought it was not bad, but not a really good example
Positive
of
communication.
positive
Anyway.
communication. Do you think that it was Frazier coming in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Never watched it. But he went in with a preconceived idea, and that was his problem.
And you use a few words that are a bit thin too.
He did. He used some very big words.
Which comes back to what old mate was saying with your triggers and filters.
Yeah. Yeah, you think going off at his dad. Yeah. Something hit home, didn't
Something
it?
triggered him. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they'll both remember it though.
Oh, for sure. Hey, that was funny. Face was good.
It's still on.
Yeah. Seinfeld was better.
I'll give him this one a name, so that must mean that it was. No, not that good. We won't worry about that one. It's not that good given where we're at. There are a few more slides there, but we've already done it. We did it from the book.
Yeah.
That was stuff I pulled straight from the book. So my question to you now is, do you have any questions for me? Given that next week's our presentation night thingy.
So what is it exactly that we are doing for this
Yeah,
presentation?
so just as it says there in the assessment, you can talk about anything that you want. Really, it's pass information on to someone. So if you want to do it as a demonstration, I'm going to show you how to do whatever, make a cup of coffee. It could be, that's probably the easiest sort of one to do, where you're actually showing someone how to do something.
Righto, logic's that. I'll teach you how to make a coffee. No, not really, but you know. I'll find
So the idea behind it is for you to present something and for you to actually be prepared. The topic doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, so last week we talked about actually writing a, now what was it called? Since last week's thing.
So have we got 6 weeks from the last lesson to hand in
No, it's not quite 6 weeks, only a couple of weeks, I think. We did talk about 6 weeks, and then the feedback was that we don't really want to be too far into the hazard stuff before we hand this one.
But can we take that 6 weeks?
If you need,
I'm not going to take all that time, obviously, but
you just let me know when you think you hand it in.
yes, it should be within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, that's what we're aiming for.
I just wanted clarification.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Because with church one, it's probably going to be given to him.
Okay. One of the things that we asked you to do at the start is to write down what it is that you're actually going to talk about. We call that the objective. So if I was going to pass some information on to someone about how I make my specialty dish or whatever it is, I would write it down. Okay, I'm going to show someone how to make curried sausages.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would be your objective. So your objective might be, Shikani, if you're going to go with coffee, I'm going to show you how to make the best coffee that you've ever tasted. But if you're going to do something like that, either you're going to have some video or you're going to have a coffee machine or something, because you're not just going to stand up here and talk. That's why I tried to find some videos for this stuff during the day, because otherwise it's meaningless. Whereas in those videos, you actually saw some of those barriers happening. Keep it simple, yeah?
Just a bit off topic, boss. But with this part 3 in your assessment,
yeah,
this design a training matrix for consultation for the following stakeholders, right? You've got 3 different people. Are we doing a different training matrix for all 3?
They can all be on. Actually, it's probably easier to do it separate.
So individually.
Yeah. So you might have. Here's the HSR training matrix. Down one side might be the names of all your HSRs, and across the top all the training that you want them to have.
Which one's that? Oh, 3.
3, but number 12, question 12.
Because, for instance,
So you need 3 matrix. So one for HSR, one for area managers, and one for supervisors. That sucks.
You might decide, just whenever you do a matrix, give it a name. If you tried to put 3 on it, you don't end up with, just say your training's across the top. Now, it could be that those 3 groups, you're going to end up with all this different training because you've got 3 groups of people. Whereas if you just do it for HSRs, it might finish here somewhere. And you've just got a lot less columns. And it'll also mean you'll be able, if it's on a computer, you'll also be able to see it on one screen, rather than having to scroll across the screen. That's the main reason you would do it separate, because the other thing's going to be, so your HSRs might need the initial course that some of you guys have done, a refresher. It could be that in your organisation you require them to have first aid. And then you might have a few other things. Well, that might be it. But then your managers, now it could be that your company has made a decision that your managers are going to do that too. Or it might be that the manager just does corporate law, corporate OHS law, HSR powers, they might learn that. Do you see where I'm going? There's no way known that your HSRs are going to do this one. So when you've got your great list of names down here.
And where do you find out what all these people need?
Well, the HSR training's in the Act.
Yeah, the HSR.
The rest you can make up.
So it's not necessarily, it's a fictitious company?
Yeah, it's a fictitious company. Yeah.
I know supervisors need your S1, 2 and 3.
Yeah, and for the industry you're working in, that could very well be the case. And you would put that in there. Okay, so that you can keep track.
I don't know what it's, I'm presuming supervisor, of course, in this one.
So,
But from an OH&S point of view, there's no mandatory requirements once you get up.
so
to
that's not,
manager
oh
and
yeah,
supervisor.
Yeah.
What's that?
Obviously, maybe a diploma or something, you might not even need a
But that,
diploma.
but this
you
is
know,
the
you might need
safety
a
training.
business degree
This is
or
the
something.
safety training.
Yeah.
we're looking at.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, not all their training, just the safety training.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. That's right.
Okay, yeah, so don't get bogged down in the other things you
Yeah,
reckon
that's
people might have.
So
Like you wouldn't have to talk about qualifications, diplomas and SENs and all the other stuff they have for nursing. We're talking about the safety training that people have to have
So that,
in the
okay,
matrix.
all right. So just to verify, with this part 3, question 12.
Yeah, I haven't got it.
Oh, isn't that what?
Yeah, but I haven't got that.
Oh, so with this, right? So
Safety
like
wise.
with the area manager
Yeah.
in nursing,
Yeah.
we don't have area managers. So would I refer to my job?
Yeah, you could. I'll just put some words in there. If you want to change the words, just change the words.
Okay.
If that makes
No,
sense.
only because we don't have area managers. Like we've
All I'm
got,
saying is here you've got health and safety reps who are
the
Coal
3 different
face?
levels.
yes.
3 different levels.
So
The supervisor's your line manager and the area manager's your next level after that.
righto. So like you're just pretty well doing a thing like so supervisor
Yeah.
there.
We want the supervisor to have a 1-day course in safety.
Righto.
Okay?
Righto. So as an example,
Yeah.
I'll just pop
So
that there.
that page there, that's for ABC engineering.
Yep. Yeah, if you want to use that, you can use that. You need to use that for something else.
Yeah.
Remember, that's okay. But we're talking safety training. See, at ABC Engineering, you might need to keep track of who's got forklift license.
Yeah.
So you might want the supervisor to have a current forklift license. Notice I didn't put general workers in there. That might have been a bit too hard.
We've got general hands.
Yeah, but in the question.
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's just keeping track of safety training is one of the things that you would be expected to do.
Okay,
What's that?
that's where I was getting confused.
What's that?
I wasn't
Although I must have written it
referring
out.
it back to safety
Yeah,
training.
see?
Right, yeah,
No,
and
it's
it's really
I've written
difficult.
it out.
Didn't I say safety training?
No,
I just had the
no.
groups.
Apologies for that. What did I say?
Just consultation
Groups?
for the following stakeholders.
Like the
Training
one.
matrix for consultation.
So then I had a HSR.
Okay, so it's all to do with knowing the workplace
2,
procedures.
there's 1 warehouse, 3 another warehouse.
So part of
Factory
safety.
B is another one.
If your HSRs are up to speed with their refreshers, they're going to know. How is
You
your
know what I mean?
supervisor going to know about the consultation?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
That
or
might be
even
an
here, the
internal
manager,
training.
still that's management, but
it's all
I
for
think
consultation, not actually just safety training.
in their factory, you know.
So long as you get me some tasks across the top, some names down the side, and a way that you're going to control it. So it could be crosses, could be colours. That would make the next solution. Other question.
Oh, my brain's
Mine's cooked, totally. It's in
Any
the
other
charcoal
questions?
Having a fair crack at your one tomorrow.
Are you? I'm in class all day tomorrow, but
Yeah, no,
feel
that's
free to
all
give me a call on Friday.
Yeah, sweet.
Should be at the desk.
Oh, Tracy, I forgot to ring you about the payments. Remember that?
I did put through a request that your invoice be reversed and that they send one to, yeah, so it should be good.
Yeah.
They send mine to his boss as well.
That was my fault because I went back and I found Louise's forms all sitting in my email. I
Oh,
forgot
right.
to
Yeah,
pass
no,
it on.
that's all right. No, because when I thought, got it, I thought I mentioned it to you. I thought maybe I said it
No,
was both.
I had it.
Yeah, that's.
If you ever leave without a pen, I've always got it for you.
Oh, thank God. My daughter Ray's mine. Like I said, she has so much craft shit. I swear to God, I reckon